There you go.
580 Sports Talk coming to you on a Red Friday. That is right. You know, I know it's a Red Friday.
How do you know, Jake?
One, because it's the Friday before the Chiefs play on Sunday, and two, my son and daughter had me play repeatedly Red Kingdom by Tech 9 this morning on the way to daycare. So they are hyped. They are excited. It is a Red Friday. The Chiefs taking on the Broncos, going for win number 17 in a row against the Denver Broncos.
That's a lot. It would be 3 shy of equaling the NFL record for most consecutive wins over one opponent. There's a lot of streaks on the line here. There's that streak. There's Mahomes' 16-game winning streak against divisional opponents on the road.
On the road. That's stupid.
That started with his first game in Denver and hasn't been broken. He's never lost a divisional road game, which is preposterous. Even Mitch Holtz can't even get through that nugget without giggling a little bit when we had him on the show yesterday.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's how absurd that one is.
Also, I actually wore red this week, so I can't be picked on.
I did not.
I immediately turned it down. I was like, I don't remember what he's wearing. Let's look. We got a lot to get to. We're going to talk KU and Oklahoma. Toby Rowland, the voice of the Oklahoma Sooners, joins us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk with Zach Stevens, DNVR, about the Broncos. We will get to Matt Derrick. Seems like it's been forever since we talked with Matt Derrick. Matt Derrick coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. Kenny Logan, Will Howard. We got so much to get to. Our picks. We will get to all of that today here on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Also, let us know on YouTube. You can go to youtube.com, type in 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Click on the subscribe button, and you can watch all of our shows. You can interact with us on YouTube. So let us know your thoughts today here on this Red Friday edition. The Kansas City Chiefs have an open roster spot that they can use because good old Justin Ross has put on the commissioner's exempt list, which, by the way, that happened really quick. That happened very, very quickly. So he's not going to be playing. He can't go to games. He can't go to anything. He's basically on double secret probation. So the Chiefs can pop up somebody on their 53-man roster. We'll find out who that is going to be coming up probably later today or tomorrow would be the example. And they can actually add another person because they technically have not put Nick Bolton on IR yet. So they can bring up 2 guys and sign them.
Yeah.
On the 53. Are you going to be one of them?
No.
Nope. Neither am I.
I will not be.
Neither am I.
I'm a little offended you didn't ask me.
Dan, do you think you'll make it?
I do not, no. But I appreciate you asking. I feel included.
I'm sorry.
That's what
apologize.
counts. The inclusion is really what counts.
It's kind of like whenever I haven't invited one of my buddies to my kids' birthdays on purpose because every single time afterwards he sends me a text and I was like, dude, how come I didn't get invited to your kid's birthday party? And I said, would you have gone? He goes, no, but I want the invite.
I want to be included.
So it's a running joke now that I don't invite him just to see if he responds with that. So, because he still wouldn't go. Let's get to our keys to the game for the Chiefs and the Broncos. My keys are real simple because I told you guys, I now have a lot more faith in the defense than I ever have before. So none of my keys involve the defense. They don't. Because I think the defense is going to slow down the Broncos. The Broncos do not have a good offense. Therefore, I'm not worried about them. Broncos are not going to score over 21 points. Okay? They're not. So that's why that's not a key anymore. They don't have any keys.
I agree with you.
No keys.
But the single funniest possible outcome is this game ends like 47-44. That's the funniest way this game could end. It won't. I agree with you, but I just want to put it out there.
Where it's like,
that would be the
what
the Browns game last week, right?
The Browns and the Colts.
Right.
Yes. We're like,
wow,
my gosh, the Browns defense is unreal,
untouchable. And then they give up 38 points to Gardner Minshew.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to go with both of them on the offensive side of things. Red zone touchdown. If you just score one red zone touchdown as opposed to the last time you played the Broncos, we're talking about the offense now having 3 straight games playing really, really well. So red zone touchdown, just get in the end zone, score 7. Don't run stupid plays. They will because it's Andy Reid. Number 2, turnovers. It could be bad weather. It could be snow. It could be rainy. It could be bad weather. Also, if you turn over the football, you are not scoring, and the opposing team has a chance to score. Plus, you could be at better field position. So, red zone touchdowns. You score touchdowns. The Broncos are not. You're going to win. Turnovers. Chiefs don't turn it over. They score on over half the drives. If they don't turn it over, like if they have 10 possessions and don't turn it over, they will score on 5 of them. On 5 of them. That could be 30, it could be 7, 30, 35 points. It could be, 20, 26. It could be 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals. They're going to score on half their possessions if they don't turn it over. So that's it. Like this one's a not difficult situation because I have full faith in the Chiefs defense. This is all about the offense.
They were Kansas City rather was +2 in the turnover margin in the first meeting. Had the 2 picks. Mahomes threw the 1 in the red zone. His arm was hit. We were all mad at him for a second. Then we watched the replay. Like, no, he wasn't screwing around.
I was not happy with Mahomes. What's he doing throwing a YOLO ball in the red zone? Come on.
No, I remember that. I do. I remember.
Salty.
Like, dude, what was that? And then you watch the replay. His arm got hit. Yeah, then those guys practice too. They get paid too. They made a play. But +2 in the turnover margin was sufficient the last time, and I would expect that the Chiefs would probably win the turnover battle. Now, I don't know to what extent, but I would expect them to win the turnover battle, just given the state of the 2 offenses and the state of the 2 defenses.
Yeah, I would figure so. You want to go do your keys next?
I'll do my keys too, because they do go hand in hand as well. And the overarching point here, and I touched on this a little bit yesterday, is you have to make the Broncos one-dimensional, and you have to make them depend wholly on Russell Wilson making plays to win them the game. And that would have been a ridiculous thing to say about prime Russell Wilson. But as the philosopher Young Jeezy would say, this ain't that, that ain't this. Like what we've got right now with Russell Wilson is not the player who's going to do those things anymore. You want him to beat you, particularly because Denver has found a spark in the running game over their last couple of weeks. They've got Javonte Williams healthy, and he played well in their win over Green Bay. And Jaleel McLaughlin provides kind of a little bit of lightning to Javonte Williams' thunder. Denver would like to run the ball and turn this into a low possession game. A heavy dose of Javonte Williams between the tackles, which sets up the play action and the deep ball, which is one thing that Russell Wilson can still hurt you with, are those moon balls 50 yards down the field. And if you have fewer possessions and a longer time of possession, you're keeping the ball out of the hands of the other team's best player, which is Patrick Mahomes. So my broader key is to make the Broncos one-dimensional. But this requires 2 things, and my 2 keys to the game. Number 1, win on first down defensively. Can't let Denver live in 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3. You've got to be winning decisively on first down. Put them in 2nd and 10. Put them in 2nd and 9. Get them behind the sticks. Get them off schedule, and make Russell Wilson have to make throws into windows on 3rd down and long. Get after him, pressure him behind an offensive line that the metrics say is playing well, but Bronco fans say is not, because, well, as it turns out, when your quarterback's Russell Wilson, you give up some sacks. I would have told Bronco fans this when the trade happened, that it's just gonna be how it is. But
it's gotten worse.
I would have sounded like a hater, and nobody would have listened to me, but I would have been right anyway. So first thing, win on first down, put them in a situation where they have to depend on their passing game to make more plays. The other thing that the Chiefs have to do, the other key to the game offensively, put early pressure on the Broncos. Go out and get 7 right off rip. Go take a 7-0 lead. Go take a 10-3 lead, a 14-0 lead. Put the Broncos behind the 8 ball right away. Denver's offense typically has been not half bad in the first half of games. Kind of a running joke among people who follow the Broncos is the scripted stuff. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So if some of this sounds like deja vu to you, then we appreciate you listening to the show so closely and so often. But Denver's scripted stuff tends to be pretty good. They have a good track record of scoring on their early drives, getting points early in games, getting out to a good number. They took a 16-3 lead on the Packers last week. And then in the second half,
I'm all too aware.
Yeah, I'm not trying to bring up bad memories. You know that.
Brennan also realizes his team is on the struggle bus.
Yeah, we suck.
They jumped out to that 16-3 lead, and then in the second half, they had to hold on to it for dear life. They put together one scoring drive, and even that drive was a long field goal. Like, what was it, 40-some, 50-some yard field goal? So it wasn't a gimme. Like, they struggle mightily as games wear on, especially if they have to chase games or if you put them in a situation where they have to score. So put them in that situation by scoring early yourself. Make them have to come back, because then that eliminates the running game almost entirely. And it's Russell Wilson against this secondary playing this well, this pass rush with the juice added with Charles Omenihu. And I don't think that's going to go well for the Broncos.
I think the Broncos' first drive of the game is the most interesting. Like,
they got to score points.
Yeah.
If you get behind early, you're in trouble.
Yeah, and they've been good. I mean, it's not just that they've been solid at it. I mean, they have been legitimately good. I think they're either, after last week, they might be first in the NFL. I think entering last week, they were number 2 in the NFL in points scored on opening drives this season. In fact, they might be there because their first drive actually ended in a field goal last week.
Chiefs made him punt first time.
Yeah, so that to me, if you're going to point to a single moment of the game that is the most fascinating going into this weekend, I think it's that. I think it's, can you stop the Broncos on their opening drive? Because if you do, you're probably going to end up cruising in the game, because there's no guarantee the Broncos are going to score after that, and certainly not once you get to the second half.
What are your keys?
All right, my keys for the contest. Number 1, I want to see more nonstop pressure from this defensive line. Not that I'm worried about it, but if you got 5 sacks against that Chargers offensive front, you should be able to do that same thing, or at least get a similar number of pressures against this Denver offensive front. And the biggest reason why, because you could say, well, Brendan, what if they get the ball out? What if the Broncos are going to adjust offensively? I would retort with, do you know who their quarterback is? Have you ever watched Russell Wilson play football before? That's not really his thing. Russell Wilson, not a big quick game guy. Gonna hold on to it. Gonna try to extend plays. Gonna wait for long developing routes, passing concepts.
Going to bail the pocket at the first hint of trouble. And not going to stand in and scan his reads. He's going to look for read 1. If it's not there, he's bailing the pocket.
And the nice thing about the Chiefs is that their guys who bring pressure are not like a bunch of Yannick Ngakoue clones where you get one straight line. There is one path to the quarterback. If he stands there, you're going to get the sack. If he takes about a half a step left, you're going to miss and overrun the play. That's not what the Chiefs are. Omenihu is big, long, athletic. Chris Jones has incredible movement for a 6'6" defensive tackle. Karlaftis can move really well coming off the edge. Dana has always been very good at moving laterally along with north and south. They are going to be able to get after the quarterback. I want to see more of that in this game. If you force Russell Wilson into either A, eating a half a dozen sacks, or B, facing a bunch of pressure and taking extra risks launching the ball, you're going to end up cruising in this game. So get after the quarterback as much as you possibly can. And number 2, I'm not going to say the Chiefs need to establish the run. I'm not going to say they got to focus on the run game or have a 50-50 split or anything like that. But I am going to tell you the Denver Broncos are currently 32nd in the NFL in run stuff win rate.
What you're trying to say is just run it when it's there. And don't run, like flippity-doo-dah, zippity-day, flip it around, reverse,
Well, no, I'm not saying that because they're going to do it. Because if I say it, I'm going to get mad because they're going to do that. So I'm going to get upset if I bring it up.
Zippity-doo-dah, flip-a-rip.
Yeah, I know they will, and I'm trying to keep my blood sugar as low as I can, or my blood pressure as low as I can. Blood sugar already, that's all over the place. Blood pressure, yeah.
You got medicine.
That's genetic, man. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I can't control that one. Well, actually, I can. Please do not call my doctor. Anywho, they're not good at stopping the run. The Chiefs run the ball by picking their spots. The Chiefs don't even always follow, the modern NFL. If you get a light box, run it. And if they give you a heavier box, RPO pass it. The Chiefs don't even really do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's done an analysis of this. The Chiefs get 5-man boxes a lot and still throw the ball, which is fine. Number 15 is your quarterback. This is the kind of game, though, where I think those spots you're picking to run the ball, I think that should be a more expanded range of looks and opportunities. Because as we've talked about before, as I have harped on before, Isaiah Pacheco can shoulder the load. You can give him the ball 20 times in a game. You can, between runs and passes, get him the ball anywhere from 20 to 25 times in a game, and he's going to be able to produce for you. So use him for that matter in this game, especially second half. If you get up in this game and it's 17-3, 24-10, something like that, use Isaiah Pacheco. Use him to wear them down, run the game clock out, and get out of there with no worries.
All righty, predictions. I've got the Chiefs winning, but I'm going to say this is closer than expected. I was incorrect on the last time because the Chiefs kicked a field goal to go up 11, and the hook got me. I've been buried by the hook a bunch this year. I'm not going to lie to you. The hook will bring you back. It will. But I got the Chiefs winning 24-17. I think the weather's going to be a big issue in this game. So I'm going to say that the Chiefs win. And Isaiah Pacheco, because it's going to be a bad weather game, Isaiah Pacheco, my big chief.
Travis Kelce's my big chief because the Broncos like to play zone, and they couldn't stop Travis Kelce. They're the worst team in the league against tight ends, and that doesn't really bode well.
Question.
Will Taylor Swift be in Denver?
Yeah.
She's got some album promo to do. Drop the 1989 Taylor's version last night.
Have you listened yet?
Absolutely not, no. I haven't listened to a Taylor Swift album in my life.
I'm going to be honest with you. The original, it's a classic pop album. It's a good album.
Yeah, Bad Blood goes. I have no problem admitting she has good songs, but I've never sat down and been like, nah, I got to spin this Taylor Swift.
No. Her songs are so catchy, man. I don't care who you are. They're catchy.
Yeah, the hits are hits for a reason.
Yeah, they're catchy.
I can't believe that album came out almost 10 years ago.
Is she going to be there? If she is, hammer the over.
Yeah, that would
be out for his girl.
That would be the trend, right? But I think there's another trend that bears mentioning when it comes to Kelce's production, and that is that the Broncos have been the worst team in the league defending tight ends.
Yeah.
And they played a lot of
also,
zone.
Choosing Kelce as a big chief, always a good play.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong.
Yeah, always a good play.
It's pretty high hit rate since we sort of unilaterally decided some 5-6 years ago that Patrick Mahomes was not an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
Not allowed after his first year.
Yeah. I think the Chiefs win this game handily. I have them winning and covering 27-2. I had to do it. 16 for the Broncos. That's their number.
Is that their magic number?
That's 16 is the magic number.
That's funny. For me, I'm going to go with George Karlaftis as my big chief pick in this game. I do think he is going to be able to get in the backfield. We've now seen tons of big games from Chris Jones. I thought Karlaftis played really well week 1. I thought he was the best player in that game for the Chiefs. Menahu was huge last week. Dana has had his big moments. I think this is going to be the Karlaftis game. I think he gets back there, gets at least a sack, plenty of pressures. He's such a good player, just such a well-rounded, solid player, and he's only in his second year. So give me Karlaftis for my big chief, and I am going to go Chiefs to win 24-10. I am not especially worried about the weather. The only reason I'm not putting more points on the total here is the fact that nobody in the NFL is scoring all that much, unless you're the Browns and the Colts, I guess. But
unless you're Garden Minshew.
Yeah, just
Garden Minshew?
Garden.
Gardner.
Savage Garden Minshew.
Savage Garden.
No, like
all right, Berman.
Nobody is scoring points
Savage
right now. No.
Garden.
Have you heard Chris Berman's Gardner Minshew? What his nickname for him is, or his Bermanism?
Taming of the Minshrew?
No, that's really good though. He just pretends to sneeze. He goes, Minshew.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh no, dude, it's so funny. It is so good. It's honestly probably the best one he has left.
It's no Jim 2 silhouettes on Deshays, that's for sure.
My favorite was Jake, Daylight Coming, I got a Delone. That's fantastic.
That's my favorite too.
When he did, who was it? Chris Calloway. Hidey.
Andre Bad Moon Rising.
There's so many good ones. Fantastic.
He was the best.
I have to watch Primetime when I can still, because it's on ESPN Plus.
Yeah.
Hey, Booger is so unintentionally funny. Like, I don't think he realizes how funny he is.
Speaking of the Booger, and
there's a reason that cats can have a little salami as a tweet went viral, because it does totally sound like something Booger would just bring up unprompted.
Yes, the
it
other
does.
thing too is, you remember the last time, speaking of Chiefs and Broncos, Booger McFarland just went all in on Showtime Mahomes. Do you remember that? Oh,
yeah.
God,
Yeah. Was that Monday Night Football?
Yes,
Would have been?
when he
was in
the Booger Mobile. Oh my gosh, ESPN. Who thought
Can you
that was a good
imagine
idea?
buying a ticket and being behind the Booger Mobile?
Oh man,
How mad would you be?
so mad. Coming up next, we'll go around the NFL and talk a little KU Oklahoma with Toby Rowland. Let's go around the NFL before we talk a little college football. We'll also get to Zach Stevens of DNVR out of Denver on all things Chiefs and Broncos. There are a lot of good games this weekend. Like, this is a good slate of games, to be honest with you. There are really two stinkers. That's Sunday Night Football and then Baltimore and Arizona. But other than that, some good games. And honestly, a huge one. Cincinnati at San Francisco. That's the big one.
Yeah, especially for a non-conference game.
Yes, this is a big one. One, because Cincinnati could fall to 3-4, and then they play the Bills next week. San Francisco could lose 3 in a row. And
doesn't sound like they're going to have Brock Purdy. Be very surprising if they did.
Yep.
So that is a huge one right now for
both those teams. Yeah.
Big one. It really, really is. So that's the one that stands out to me the most when it comes to this weekend's games.
Yeah, that's a big one. This one is, I mean, not that either of these teams is probably a Super Bowl contender, but a game that is going to make a major impact in the AFC. Noon kickoff on Sunday. Jags Steelers. That's a really interesting matchup, I think. The Steelers offense is not fun to watch at all, but they're 4-2. Their defense is as good as ever, and they just win. That's what they do. That's what Mike Tomlin does. And I think that Jacksonville offense might struggle with Pittsburgh's defense a little bit. I think Jacksonville's defense better than I thought it would be this year, but I think can still get got. Jags need to stack wins because that's a friskier division than I thought it would be. I mean, I thought the Jags might go 10-7 and win that division by 3 games. I don't necessarily know that either of those things is true at this point. So I think that's going to be a big game, and it means a lot to both teams because Pittsburgh also needs to stack as many wins as possible in that really tough division.
Yeah, that's a big one. And the Steelers are a home dog, and Mike Tomlin's teams tend to perform really well in those situations. Browns Seahawks is a big one for both teams. Late afternoon game.
Both of them are 4-2.
Both of those teams are 4-2. It's still going to be PJ Walker for the Browns. I know they put 39 points up last week against the Colts. They ran a lot of plays in that game because the Colts run a lot of plays. Like, Colts games are like college games with the number of plays and the number of possessions. They're like the closest thing we've got to like Oregon out there because Shane Steichen just loves to get to the line and run plays. But that was a big win for the Browns, and they're 4-2, and they're trying to hang tough in a very difficult division that is going to be hard to make the playoffs out of. And they've got to be thinking playoffs because their defense is too good for them not to.
Mm-hmm.
But the Seattle defense is really good too. The biggest thing for the Seahawks has been they have moved the ball at will, and then they get inside the 20, and it's like the floor is lava. They can't do anything right in the red zone. That cost them the game. They should have beaten Cincinnati, and they didn't because they went 1 for 5 in the red zone. Geno Smith threw a red zone pick last week against the Cardinals for the second straight week, made that game closer than it needed to be. I think Seattle, who is a 3.5-point home favorite, they're wearing their throwbacks. They're going to look really sharp. Can't lose in those, right?
Yeah,
Although,
those do look pretty.
In fairness, when they wore them, they did a lot of losing. Like, late 80s, early 90s.
When you think of that jersey, you think of one person and one person only, Dave Craig. Like, that's the only person that I think of.
I was going to say Cortez Kennedy.
I was also going to say Cortez Kennedy.
I think Dave
who
Craig
won the Defensive Player of the Year award playing for a 2-14 Seahawks.
Yeah, he was really good that year.
I think that's a fascinating game. I think it's one the Seahawks should win. And that would be a big win for them. Could potentially put them in first place if the 49ers lose to the Bengals.
Have they played each other yet, 49ers and
No.
Seahawks?
No, they
Wow, they haven't. That's a that Bengals game is a huge one, especially if Baltimore is going to be playing this well. If you are the Bengals, if they lose and Baltimore wins, they'll be 3 games up on Baltimore?
I think so.
I thought something of that. That's impressive.
So Baltimore would be up if they win and the Bengals lose. They would be up 3 games.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because they'd be 6-2.
6-2 versus 3-4.
Yeah.
So 2.5 games. But yeah, 2 in the loss column, 3 in the win column.
Vance makes an interesting question. Excuse me.
You okay?
YouTube comment. Yeah, I'm gonna
Is
be all right.
Dan gonna live?
Am I going to choke to death? Would you have thought the 49ers might have trouble winning because Brock Purdy may not play?
I'm worried about you, Dan. I'm worried.
Yeah, we'll take it from here. Would you have been surprised by the thought that the 49ers could struggle without Brock Purdy? Yeah, I mean, I certainly would have. But by the same token, I mean, they chose him as their starter for a reason.
Yeah.
And I guess you have to give credence that he was the best option they had.
I think Sam Darnold can do all the Brock Purdy stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to lose because we saw it last week with the 49ers that Purdy can anticipate really well. And I think that's why he's going to be able to stick around in the league for a long time because, well, he doesn't have all the physical gifts. And while I think his decision-making is not especially good, some of those anticipatory throws he had against Minnesota were really impressive. I think you're going to lose that element with Sam Darnold in there, but he's got more than enough ability and experience to know don't throw the ball to the orange team and find where 19 is, find where 11 is, and hand it to 23.
Trent Williams playing?
Great question. I don't know.
Don't know that.
I'll check real quick for you. So we got to get to
Because
Toby here.
the best thing for Sam Darnold will be is if 71 is playing.
John Lynch said, and I quote, "If Trent Williams can play, he'll play."
So we don't know. Okay, cool.
It
Awesome.
sounds like it's trending that way.
Awesome. Yeah, they need him to play. No question. So some fun games
What a
this
quote.
weekend, to be honest with you. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Toby Rowland, voice of the Oklahoma Sooners, as KU takes on Oklahoma.
Yeah. It is an ME. Yeah. This is from one of their lesser albums.
I
also can't say the name.
I feel like you should be a little bit more. You should be proud that I got close to it.
Well, yeah, no, that was good. I mean, Megadeth was born out of Metallica, so
Wait a minute.
Dave Mustaine of Megadeth, he was the original lead guitarist for Metallica, and then he got kicked out. Can you imagine doing too many drugs and drinking too much for Metallica? They literally became known as Alcoholica, and they kicked him out because he was too belligerent. And then he founded Megadeth, which is also a very good band.
Megadeth has some good songs. We could do like Metallica song or Megadeth song just by song title.
Yeah.
Jake, how many do you think you would get?
Ooh.
Who did Master of Puppets?
Oh, see, I know that one. That's Metallica.
Who did Symphony of Destruction?
That one is Megadeth.
He's 2 for 2.
Holy Wars, The Punishment Due.
Megadeth.
Correct.
Battery.
Metallica.
Outlaw Torn.
Am I 4 for 4?
4 for
right
4,
now?
yeah.
What happened? I blacked
Yeah.
out. I don't know what's going on. What one?
The Outlaw Torn.
The Outlaw. Oh, that's Metallica.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Dread in the Fugitive Mind.
Man, this is like a 6-leg parlay we're going on right now. Okay, I need to save these. Megadeth.
Wow.
No. A tout le monde.
Megadeth.
7%. Are you like a secret fan?
Absolutely not.
Oh, there was one time
Absolutely not.
I came into the station on a Saturday. I don't know why I was here, but I came in for something on a Saturday, and I hear Dream Theater playing.
Yes.
80s.
Now I am a fan
Yeah.
of Dream Theater.
80s prog metal, like experimental band.
13-minute
Yeah.
long instrumental songs with
Yeah.
like 9 words.
Under the
Yes.
Glass Moon, all-time great track.
Big fan of DT, man.
And I'm like, who is playing? Who is here? And who is playing this? And it's Jake. I walk into the office like, why are you also here on a Saturday? And B, I did not know you listened to this.
No, Dream Theater. I only listened to Dream Theater because when I was just a wee lad, as we're trying to get a hold of Toby Rowland here to talk a little Oklahoma Sooner football. When I was a little kid, my best friend's dad was a drummer in a band.
Okay.
And if you're a drummer, you love Dream Theater.
Yeah, I believe that.
Because Dream Theater had some of the best drum solos. And so whenever we would go out to their house, and his dad would be, listening to music, he'd be listening to rock, obviously.
Yeah.
Because that was the kind of the band that he played. Shout out Last National Band in Salina. Fantastic band. But
they're still playing?
yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, they did like a reunion tour.
Good for them.
Yeah. And yeah, you played Dream Theater.
Huh.
Fantastic band.
How about that?
See, every now and then I throw you guys a curveball and you're just like, whoa, hey, ho.
I know. I
Wait
was
a
very
minute.
surprised
He
the
is
first time I heard
old
that.
and washed 95% of the time.
I mean, they are quite old.
We are out to Toby Rowland, by the way, voice of the Oklahoma Sooners. We are out to him. We will try and link up with him at some point during this segment here as Oklahoma takes on Kansas on Big Noon Saturday on Fox.
Big nude Saturday.
Oklahoma, KU got a chance?
Absolutely,
KU's
they do.
You think?
I like them to cover the 9.5, to be honest with you.
Really?
I think that's entirely possible because I don't think Oklahoma's defense has been all that convincing. Early on in the season, they were wrecking shop, but you look back at who they were playing, like, they held Cincinnati to 6 points. Texas got in the 30s. UCF moved the ball at will with chunk run plays. I think KU's built to do that.
Yeah, I think KU will be able to do it. Be able to hang close. I don't know that I would pick KU straight up to win the game, but I think KU's got a really good chance here. In my personal opinion.
I think the Big 12 has some interesting games this week.
Yeah.
I think K-State's going to take care of business against Houston for one simple reason and one simple reason only. Where is Houston located, guys?
Texas.
Be more specific, please.
Southeast Texas.
Very, very southeast Texas, okay? I don't know if you guys know, but the weather tomorrow in Manhattan, Kansas, 44 degrees with about a 70% chance of rain. What do people from Houston don't like?
Cold.
People from Dallas. Oh, you mean weather?
The San Antonio Spurs.
I mean, you guys are 2 for 2 right now. We can keep going.
Transplants from Louisiana who moved there after they went to LSU.
Yeah. Okay.
The fact that Chameleon Air and Paul Wall were beefing.
Yes.
James Harden getting traded meant the strip club economy of Houston crashed like 400%.
That is true.
It's cold. The answer you're looking for is the cold.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's cold. I'm telling you, they are not going to be about that life tomorrow. If it is rainy, it's going to be an 11 o'clock kickoff. It's an early one against Houston. Folks, K-State, I think, is going to smash Houston. They are not going to be ready for it. The only way that game is close is if it is turnovers. Any game can be close if there are turnovers involved.
Yeah.
But that is the only way that ends up happening, because Houston's not going to be ready for that. And I think K-State has found their groove when it comes to their run game.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I think K-State's a better team here. I think I would take them to cover 17.5 points, too.
That's a lot of points in a conference game, though.
Honestly, more than the weather, I just think Houston's not a very good team. Like, Donovan Smith is a fine college quarterback, but there's nobody on that roster who I look at right now, and, famous last words, I know, but there's nobody who I think, oh, my God, like, matchup nightmare. K-State's got a matchup nightmare. They've got Avery Johnson. And if Will Howard is on, he can throw the ball as well as anybody. DJ Giddens, when he's on, that's a matchup nightmare because he can. You don't think of him as a guy who can catch the ball. He's actually quite good at catching the ball. K-State's got those guys. Houston doesn't.
I think K-State has a. I'm not worried about the win. I do 17.5 points that's a lot of points for a conference.
It's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
Houston offensively can do some things.
That's the thing, because I don't think Houston's gonna be able to stop K-State, but man, K-State's gonna be up 30-10, and game's over, and that's 17.5.
You're worried about the back door.
Yeah,
it's a big number to protect the back door. Like I get that.
It's not like Ohio State's taking on someone, and Ohio State's defense is so good. Like, it's really, really good.
But like K-State's defense, top 20 in the country in scoring defense. Like, if you think about the games where they haven't played well, like, they didn't play great against Mizzou. Mizzou got some playmakers. They got all kinds of dudes, right?
Yeah, they got one dude specifically.
They gave up a couple of chunk plays to UCF. UCF ended up putting a big number on them. UCF scored 24 points. They scored a final touchdown, like a consolation touchdown with no time left.
Yeah, that is true.
They allowed 22 offensive points to Oklahoma State. They just held TCU to 3. They're a top 20 scoring defense in the country right now. So I know we don't think of K-State as like a defensive juggernaut, and they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they're healthier because Will Lee is back and Jacob Parrish is back, and they missed those guys when they couldn't play. Sounds like Austin Romine's going to be available. They'll have a little bit more depth at linebacker. I could see them keeping Houston in the teens. And then can K-State get to 38? Can they get to 40? Can they cover that way? I think they can. I think that's, I mean, I don't want to say it's exceedingly likely, but when I look at this matchup, I think that's the most likely way it ends up is Kansas State just scores in bunches because they also have a top 20 scoring offense in the country.
For KU, I know you guys are not Dylan Gabriel fans. Paul Myberg, not a big Dylan Gabriel fan.
Yeah, it always makes me feel smart. Whenever Paul agrees with me, I always feel really smart.
And that is the side of the ball that's the most important for me. Is if Oklahoma can put that many points on Texas, that makes me worry about the game against Kansas. This game is a huge one for Oklahoma, because if you look at it, Oklahoma's got 2 tough games the rest of the year, this one and then Bedlam. And we all know that Bedlam is not a huge deal because Oklahoma just always seems to beat up on Oklahoma State. Now, granted, maybe this year's different because Ollie Gordon's the best player on either team. And when was the last time that you could say that, the best player in the game is on Oklahoma State's roster? That normally doesn't happen. But that's why I think Oklahoma will be ready for this one. I think the UCF game was a little bit more. And I think UCF, and that's where I do agree with Paul the most. Plumlee makes it a different team for UCF when he's in there. And
Yes.
they saw a different team. I think if you look at it, if he stays healthy, and why is it whenever I did it specifically when I said just Plumlee, why is it everyone always has to say his full name?
John Reese Plumlee?
Yeah, whenever you mention his name, you never say John Reese or you never say Plumlee. It's always John Reese Plumlee. Is it because it's a Southern name and it has 3 names and it just flows really good?
Two things. One, some guys are just like that.
Perfect example. When I mention Washburn's quarterback, I don't call him Van Dyne. It's Sam Van Dyne.
Yeah, no, some guys are just like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The
John David Booty.
Well, that's just fun. The late, great Robert Kukala, the former since past voice of the Hawaii Rainbows television broadcasts, Rainbow Warriors. When they had Cole McDonald for 4 years as their starting quarterback, started 4 years for that program, I do not think he called him just McDonald a single time. And I watched a lot of Hawaii football because it's on late and I'm up late. Every single time it was Cole McDonald. It was never just McDonald. Some guys just like that. Yeah. Also, I think some people genuinely don't know which one is his name John Reese or is his name John Reese Plumlee? Is it John Reese Plumlee? I think most people just don't know. So it's easier to just say all of them at the same time.
Anywho.
But yeah, they are a much different team. And that's Timmy McClain is not very good.
Yeah, and that's why I think that Oklahoma game against UCF is more indicative of UCF than it is of Oklahoma. And if I'm West Virginia, I'd be a little worried right now. Because West Virginia is the one who plays UCF. There's a reason why UCF is a 7-point favorite right now, folks. And it's because of John Reese Plumlee. So I think that's more about UCF and less about Oklahoma.
Okay.
Now the money is on the Hawks right now. A lot more people, 61% of the money is on Kansas right now.
Is that from FanDuel?
That is from Game Picks.
Okay. From Vegas Insider, they take the readings from all the American sports books. They actually have it heavier. They have 73%. 73% of the money is on KU, 63% of the bets.
So that does concern me a little bit.
The
defense.
Yeah.
The only way KU beats Oklahoma is they got to play almost the perfect game. Jason Bean has to play like he did against Oklahoma State, and the KU defense has to come ready to play.
They've got to be ready to play.
Issue
I don't think Bean is the key. I think the key is the running game. I think
interesting.
I think they have to be able to run the ball against Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's run defense is really good, right?
Yes.
But cracks in the foundation. UCF exploited that last week, using creative ways to open up holes and getting their speed into space. They had a lot of chunk plays on offense. Now, Gus Malzahn's really good at that stuff. But you know who else is really good at that stuff? Andy Kotelnicki.
And Lance Leipold in the Hawks. Yeah,
so
I'm with you.
I think that there are going to be opportunities for Kansas to spring some chunk plays in the running game, take some of the pressure off of Bean. Now, he does have to play well. He can't turn it over. I mean, he turns it over twice like he did last week against Oklahoma State. That's going to bode, I think, extremely poorly. But if Kansas can find some joy on the ground, if they can have a play on a drive where they pick up 25, 30 yards with Neal or Highshaw, or maybe it's Bean, maybe it's a receiver on an end around, something along those lines. Those plays look like they're there against the Oklahoma defense. They can be really overwhelming on a play-to-play or a success rate basis, but there are cracks in that foundation. And if Kansas can find them, they can hang close.
So I do believe Jason Bean is going to be the key here. And more than Bean, it's the passing game. So you throw in the pass protection. The receivers have to make plays. Oklahoma this year is 4th in the Big 12 in pass defense efficiency. This is from Stats Perform. They are 38th in the country, which is not bad. But for the Power 5, it's a little bit lower. It's more mediocre. Their run defense, 16th. Best, most efficient run defense in the country. This thing that I'm worried about with KU's run game here, Oklahoma runs a variant, but a similar kind of defense to what Iowa State and Oklahoma State run. That 3-3 front with 5 players in the defensive backfield. We talked about this with Michael Swain 2 weeks ago going into the Oklahoma State game, that he was worried because Oklahoma State has changed to the 3-3-5 which gave KU problems last year. If you remember the Iowa State game for Kansas last year, KU won mostly because Matt Campbell had a freshman kicker keep going out there after missing 3 field goals.
Yeah.
Like, in all reality, KU probably should have lost that game to Iowa State. So thank you for that, Matt Campbell. KU has really struggled because these defenses are less about plugging up the holes up front with your down linemen and more about having those extra linebackers and hybrid safeties who have the ability, playing back a little bit, to either get into space in the flats quicker or plug up run fits a little bit better. Those have made things more difficult for KU. They already struggle, or they're already going up against a good run defense in Oklahoma. So I think you've got to be able to run it better than you did against Oklahoma State. No doubt about that, because you're not going to win many games running that inefficiently. But I do think being maybe not 405 touchdowns, but he's going to have to be effective, and he's got to be careful with the ball in this game. Because if you give away possessions, OU is going to make you pay.
I wouldn't touch this spread because I don't know. I just wouldn't. I'd take the Oklahoma the money line. Is what I do. Surprise, it's only 380. That's it. Minus 380 for Oklahoma. It's not like a minus 880 where it's an overwhelming favorite.
Yeah, put them in a parlay, maybe.
I think if I was going to bet it, I'd actually take KU on the money line in this game.
I like the spread. I think they can keep it within. I just feels like a touchdown or an 8-point game to me.
Coming up, we will get to Zach Stevens, who covers the Denver Broncos. Just how bad is it in Denver? We will get to that. We will get to On Second Thought. Matt Derrick will join us. We got a lot more to get to on this Red Friday edition. We'll hear from Kenny Logan. We'll hear from Will Howard. We'll get our picks. We got all sorts of stuff. Will I fade myself in the NFL? We will find out. We'll get to all that coming up today here on 580 Sports Talk. number 2 here on 580 Sports Talk on this Red Friday. Thank you so much for stopping by. Jake LeBon, Brendan Orzinski, Dan Lucero with you. We got lots happening over the next 72 hours. Our Lewis Toyota High School game of the week will be at Lester Wetter Field. Shawnee Heights will be in action, so we'll call the Shawnee Heights game this evening. And then tomorrow we got K-State taking on Houston. That's the early kick, 11 o'clock kickoff right here on 580. Also 9 o'clock pregame coverage. Then on Sunday, the Chiefs go for 17 wins in a row over the Denver Broncos. 3:30 start time, 2 o'clock pregame coverage right here on 580 WIVW. So we got a lot going on. A lot going on over the next 72 hours here on the sports voice of Kansas.
And that's without even including, because they're not on our airwaves, KU Oklahoma and Big Nude Saturday.
That's right. And we're going to talk all things Sooners with the voice of the Oklahoma Sooners, Toby Rowland, joining us. Toby, how are things going there in Norman?
Things are good. How are you guys today?
Doing well, doing well. All right, Oklahoma, are they back? Last year, a little bit of a down year. What's been the biggest change from year 1 under Brent Venables to year number 2?
Well, I think a couple of things. Probably the biggest has been that the defense has been significantly better this year. They were not good at all last season, and that was a bit of a shock for a Brent Venables defense, but maybe somewhat understandable considering it was year 1 of the system. There was certainly seemed to be some confusion perhaps as the year went along as to exactly where you're supposed to be and who's where and all that kind of stuff. This year, a much greater understanding of the system, it seems, defensively, and they've upgraded the talent on that side of the ball as well through both the transfer portal and high school recruiting. So the defense has been significantly better so far this year. And I think that, once you start to play well early, sometimes the momentum takes over. And at least so far this year, and certainly through the big win over Texas, it's just a greater belief that this year things are going better.
When it comes to offense, when I think of Oklahoma, I think of offense. How has the offense played this season? Dylan Gabriel has had some really good games. He was incredible against Texas, even some top 5, in the Heisman rankings, if you will. Right now, what is clicking for the offense?
Yeah, Dylan's been great. He's been around forever. Okay, he's played a ton of college football. It's just his second year at Oklahoma, but he's played a ton of college football. He is on track this season, if he stays healthy, to finish his career as one of the top 10 in college football history in both yards and touchdown passes. So that's just kind of a testament to, not at the University of Oklahoma, period, in the history of college football. So that's just kind of a testament to his longevity and the year that he's having so far this year. Great numbers, hasn't turned it over much. So as the leader, he's been really good. I think they've had some guys step up in the wide receiving core that coming into the year, maybe we weren't expecting to be as good as they've been. Nick Anderson is a redshirt freshman that has 8 touchdowns, which leads the Big 12. Other than that, the running game has been a little bit of a disappointment so far this year. It just have not been explosive at all. They've been okay, but not great. The offensive line, same thing. It's been okay, but not great. And I would say that for the first time in a long time, this has been an Oklahoma team that has leaned on its defense, that has been the better side of the football.
When it comes to this game coming up tomorrow against Kansas, what worries you most about this matchup?
I think the Kansas offense is really, really good. They're creative. They've got 2 big-time running backs. Jason Bean, if that's who it is at quarterback, and it sounds like it will be, is one of the fastest quarterbacks in America. And he had 4 touchdown passes against OU last year, so he can throw the ball too. They're just a dynamic offensive team. And if, on a normal day, that's a lot to handle. If the weather becomes a factor tomorrow, which it sounds like there's a possibility it could be, and it's harder for Oklahoma to throw the football around, then the team with the better running game suddenly has a big advantage. And I think that probably going into the game anyway, that's got to be Kansas. So there's a lot to worry about there. They're going to have a sellout crowd. they're excited, I'm sure, about an opportunity to beat Oklahoma on the way out the door of the Big 12 Conference. So I think we're headed for a special atmosphere and a really good Kansas offensive team.
We're chatting with Toby Rowland, the voice of the Oklahoma Sooners, here on 580 Sports Talk. Toby joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can find him, of course, on Twitter at TROOU and on the Oklahoma radio broadcasts, obviously. Speaking of that KU offense and running game, Toby, KU has really struggled against defenses with that 3-3 front like Oklahoma has run a lot more of this season. That Oklahoma run defense, what have you thought about the way they have grown and developed as a unit over the course of the year?
They've been pretty solid. You know, they've, I don't know if they have any stars up front, but they have depth. And they have, probably 8 guys on that defensive line that they'll churn throughout the contest to keep fresh bodies on the field. And for the most part, they've been really good. Danny Stutzman at linebacker, probably a Butkus candidate right now with the way he's played so far this season. There's Kansan next to him and Jaron Kanik from Hayes, who has had a very nice season as well, extremely fast. And they've been solid. They have been gotten a few times, but not much. So that's encouraging. I think, that's kind of the story across the board with them defensively, is that teams have been able to make plays here and there, but over the course of a game, they have stood up pretty well.
Outside of Jason Bean, who obviously can make so many plays with his legs because of his speed, and you mentioned the success he had passing the ball against OU a season ago down in Norman, is there any other offensive playmaker for KU that really stands out to you as a must-stop candidate?
Well, I think the combo of Neal and Hishaw is as good as any in this league and one of the best in the country at the running back position. Both of them are dangerous every time they touch the ball. A guy who has really given Oklahoma fits in his career is Mason Fairchild. I mean, I think he's an outstanding tight end and certainly a guy that stands out. So they've got weapons everywhere. Skinner coming off a big game against Oklahoma State at wide receiver. Luke Grimm is a very good player at wide receiver. Lawrence Arnold. So on and on and on. I mean, he's got weapons everywhere.
On the defensive side of things for KU, the secondary is its most talented unit with Kobe Bryant, Mello Dotson, Kenny Logan, guys who've been long-term starters, have put up stats, have shut guys down. That's the most talented unit for Brian Borland's defense. But it really all starts up front, and KU's got to be able to, A, stop the run at least reasonably well to find success, and they've got to harass opposing quarterbacks. Now, both Austin Booker and Jeremy Robinson look like they're going to be full goes this week, the 2 starting defensive ends. What do you make of the Oklahoma offensive line this year, how well they've played? I mean, anyone who knows college football knows that unit's been as good as anybody for the last, decade plus at this point, blocking for their respective quarterbacks. How do you think they've done against the pass so far this year, and how do you think they match up on Saturday with that KU duo?
Better as a pass blocking unit than a run blocking unit so far this season. I think you've touched on a real key area of this football game. Can Oklahoma line up and run the ball with consistency against Kansas? It is something they have struggled to do, at least at the level they would like to do it so far this year. They have really lacked explosiveness in the run game. They have not had very many at all 30-plus yard runs on the season. So, and they really haven't landed on exactly who they want to go to in the running game. We've seen a rotation of backs all season long. Gavin Sawchuk, a redshirt freshman, ended the game last week against UCF with a really nice fourth quarter. So I think the assumption is that maybe he'll get the start on Saturday and be the guy at least early on, but that's an unknown. And that same lack of assuredness applies to the offensive line. They've had a couple of injuries up front, and they've had a rotation of guys at both guard positions, and it just hasn't clicked for them yet in the running game. But I think it is important, and for the reasons you've mentioned, because the secondary is talented for Kansas, because the elements could be difficult, Sooners are going to have to run the ball on Saturday, and they really need to do it better than they've done so far this season. So that offensive line, that running game, very much in the spotlight if you're a Sooner fan.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is Toby Rowland, the radio play-by-play voice of the Oklahoma Sooners. Toby in Lawrence this Saturday with the Sooners as they take on the Kansas Jayhawks, an 11 a.m. kickoff at David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium. Toby, how much has the Oklahoma passing game felt the absence of Andrell Anthony, who has the second most receptions and second most yards of any Oklahoma wide receiver? Is that something that has been harmful to the passing attack, an element that he brought that maybe they don't have with him on the sideline?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's only been one game, so I don't know that we can answer that fully yet. They do have good depth at wide receiver, and so you're getting a chance to see some of the younger guys like Nick Anderson, who came off the bench until last week, Jaden Gibson, Gavin Freeman. You're getting to see some of these guys get more opportunities because Anthony isn't out there. I think they're going to be okay, but they did lose their toughest cover. I mean, Anthony was maybe their biggest deep threat. He was fantastic coming back to the football in the dig route. He could really be a playmaker at all three levels of a secondary. And so it hurts. It is a big loss for them. Just how much it hurts, I think, remains to be seen. Certainly the offense didn't get going much at all last week until the fourth quarter. And so was it because of the absence of Andrell Anthony, or was it a post-Texas hangover? You know, we'll find out a little bit more, I think, this week. But no doubt it is a big blow to this offense.
If you are describing an Oklahoma victory on your post-game show tomorrow after the game, which player or players or unit or side of the ball, you can be as general or specific as you want, but what do you think will have been the key factor if Oklahoma is able to defeat Kansas on Saturday, the most important factor for an Oklahoma win?
Yeah, I go back to the run game, and I'm talking both ways. You know, the ability of Oklahoma to try to contain Neal and Highshaw and even Jason Bean and that Kansas running attack, and the ability of they themselves to run it. If Oklahoma can outrush Kansas, then I think they've got a really good chance to win the game. They've got to get it going themselves offensively on the ground, and they can't just let Kansas churn it on them all day long on the ground as well. So this seems to me to be, especially considering that we could have some cold and rain and wind, this seems to me to be the team that runs the ball better Saturday probably leaves Lawrence with a win.
Final couple questions for Toby Rowland, voice of the Oklahoma Sooners. I was really bummed that K-State and Oklahoma were not going to play this year. I think the Big 12 really screwed that up with Big 8 rivals, K-State and Oklahoma. They should have played this year. One, because they seem to play fantastic games.
We still might.
That is true. That is true.
That's true.
Very good point. Very good point. Regular season-wise. So I got to ask, with Oklahoma leaving the Big 12 Conference, you personally, what road trip are you going to miss most when you head to the SEC that you won't get in the Big 12?
Well, that's a great question. You know, I've been in this conference for a long time and have developed a lot of friendships, both broadcaster-wise, coaches, media relations, fans, through the years. And so there's a lot of them. I certainly am going to miss the opportunity to come to Lawrence. There's nothing like getting to call a game in Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Manhattan is amazing, really, across the board, whether it's Bill Snyder Family Stadium or the Octagon of Doom. We've had some great baseball games in Manhattan as well through the years. So those two rank pretty high. I hope that through the years, maybe after some of the hard feelings die down, that we will see some non-conference matchups with some of the old Big 8, especially Big 8 foes, Big 12 as well through the years. I think it would be a lot of fun, whatever the sport, non-conference wise, to get to see those teams again. So hopefully, this isn't our last trip to Lawrence forever, but it is going to be for quite a while, at least as it pertains to football.
Last thing, Brent Venables is the Salina guy. Granted, he went to Salina South, not the good school, the Salina Central Mustangs. You got to ask him if you can find out, is he a Cozy's guy or a Bogey's guy from one Salina guy to another? I'll be interested to know what side of the fence, because the Cozy side is on the northern side, Bogey's on the southern side. I got to think he's probably a Bogey's guy since he was a South guy. But if you can find that out for me, Toby, sometime, I'd like to know.
I'm about to interview Coach here when he arrives at the team hotel in about a half hour. So, Cozy's or Bogies? Are these burger places?
Yes, yeah, great burger places in Salina. Fantastic ones.
I'll find out for you.
Awesome, Toby. We appreciate the time. Have a good call tomorrow.
See you guys.
Toby Rowland, voice of the Oklahoma Sooners. It'll tell me a lot about Brent Venables, if he's a Cozy's guy or a Bogey's guy.
Does Bogies make you smell like onions the way Cozy's does?
No. Bogey's is more about the shakes and the shakes. They have like 300 different types of shake.
Ooh.
Hey now.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. But Cozy's was the central side, the northern side, northern Santa Fe. Bogey's down south on 9th Street.
I'm going to check out Bogies next time I'm in Salina.
Yeah. Fantastic places.
I want to address something that came in, and I don't have a first name here, but from YouTube user MPM, checking out the show on the YouTube feed today, and appreciate all you guys who are watching along. Because I've brought up a couple times, end of last hour, and then with Toby here, that KU has really struggled with those 3-3-5 defenses, and he fairly brings up, you know who else runs a 3-3-5? UCF. You know what KU did against UCF? Ran for 400 yards. I'm sorry, 399, which I think is fair. My rebuttal to that would simply be Oklahoma athletes, as their roster is currently constructed, and Iowa State and Oklahoma State, much different than UCF.
They're going to hold up a little better at the point of attack than UCF's linemen did. You probably got similar speed in the back end for UCF, but if your line is getting caved in,
different kind of beef.
Yeah, and that might be the most significant advantage that Oklahoma has. If they're able to win that battle in the trenches, and KU can't get their running game going, I don't see them winning this game in a one-dimensional way.
But it's a fair point brought up, and I'm glad that was brought up by someone, because hey, they've struggled with it, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be, they can't beat it. And again, 400 yards against UCF just a few weeks ago. I don't think that will happen against this Oklahoma defense, but I would take it.
We have a texter in from the 785 who says Cozy's all day.
See, I'm Team Cozy. This vote for Team Cozy.
Okay.
When I go back, I go get the Cozy burgers.
All right. I'm not out there very much, but next time I am, I'll stop by. Next time I go for something.
That, and you got to go to the Scheme. The Scheme.
The Scheme?
Yeah. It's a pizza joint.
The Scheme Pizza. Okay.
Scheme Pizza. Now be careful. You got to have cash or a check. They don't take credit cards.
Check.
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
Dog, if I'm behind you in line and you're paying with a check, I'm calling the cops.
Well, you better have cash or check, because last time I believe they don't take credit cards.
I think
paying with a check, like the dude in The Big Lebowski cutting a 75-cent check for his half and half so he can make his White Russians.
I think Pizza Shuttle in Lawrence has finally started taking cards. I think they have. Forever, they were cash only. But I also haven't had Pizza Shuttle, I think, since I was in school.
I don't even think I own checks.
I don't.
My wife will write a check. Like, she'll write a check to, she'll write a check to her mom to, as a make good here and there. She's got a checkbook. I cannot tell you, since I don't pay rent anymore, the last time I wrote a check.
I write a check
pay
every
a mortgage
month.
now.
I write a check every month.
For daycare?
For daycare.
They won't take Venmo? Zelle? PayPal?
I don't know. I don't really care.
You'll be able to do that on X soon.
Yeah.
The everything
I'm
app.
really going to trust X.
Yeah. I give Elon Musk my banking information.
I don't care about that. I just know the cesspool that is Twitter. I ain't about ready to put anything of importance on there.
All I know is I was promised less bots. I have a bot like every single one of my tweets now. If you're saying this is a good place to keep money, I'm going to have to believe the opposite.
Unless I can scam other people, in which case...
take the good with the bad.
Yeah, maybe pick up a couple of bucks. I'm smarter than the average bear.
By the way, Clayton,
hold on a second.
Get into some scamming.
No.
Get a little side gig as a scammer.
If I find y'all scheming people, we're gonna have problems. I am not okay with that.
So I tweeted about. By the way, I was going to tell you, Clayton on YouTube says another vote for Cozy.
Yeah,
says Cozy is fire.
I bet you I bet he's a South guy. South people, their ride or die was Bogey's or La Casita, one of the two.
Is La Casita also a burger place?
No, it's a Mexican place.
Okay. I was gonna say, I've tweeted about it the other day. Have you ever seen the show Baggage, hosted by Jerry Springer?
Familiar with it.
It's a dating game show. It is so trashy. It is incredibly funny.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day, one of the pieces of baggage was that they had to determine, like, can you accept this and go on a date with this guy?
Ooh, that's actually a really good question. But that's kind of like what's your red flag?
It is, yeah. And his big piece of baggage was that for a while he lived in Las Vegas and made his living scamming people. And they're like, okay, so what is the... He's like, well, I fell at some hard times.
Done.
I got involved with some people at a casino one night. For a few months, I was scamming people. I made a lot of money. And I used that money to start my own business. Now I don't scam people anymore. And the woman was like, yes, I'll accept this. And I guarantee you that relationship lasted one day.
From the text line, if you get a cozy burger, do not put it in your car. Correct.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard.
Correct. Put it in the trunk. Preferably, if you have a truck, you put it in the bed of your truck. That is correct. Your car will smell like weed. Bogies is much better. So we got one for Team Bogies. I live in Abilene, work in Salina. I know both. They're both great. Don't get me wrong. But if I had to choose, I mean, it'd be like choosing between, $1 million and like $8, So there you go. Coming up, we got On Second Thought, and then we'll talk with Matt Derrick. See, we're here to try to solve some people's problems. What if your car is a Suburban, no trunk? Here's what you do. I've got this, okay? You buy them by the sack, right? You take
at the Cozy Burger, yes.
You take the sack, all right? You put it on the outside. You open your car door, right? You take the sack and you kind of put the top part of the sack across the window.
I'm uncomfortable with how often you're saying sack.
Okay. The bag, okay? You take the bag and you put it over, and then you roll the window up and hold it. So that way the bag
Is outside the car.
outside the car, but it is stuck between the window and the window frame and the door, and there you drive home. So then you won't get. I have done this before. I have done that before.
I think I just like take them and eat in. Like
No, they do have a bunch of picnic tables around the place.
I was gonna say, why not just sit there and eat?
Well, you don't go inside the restaurant. You're nuts.
Okay,
there.
so if you do, in the winter, I guess you can roll down all the windows. There's that too. You don't have to stick your food outside in the elements so it gets
Yeah,
cold.
you hold out hold the bag out there while you drive. That type of situation. There is worth it though, man. I'm telling you. Get a bag of those, 6 of those. You get a can of pop and then a bag of Ruffles.
Ah, hell yeah, brother.
It's fantastic. Kind of want some. On second thought, what do you guys got?
I've been on a bit of a roll with the old gambling last week or so. I was feeling pretty good. Last night, I was like, live NBA bet. Lakers are down and they're still favored on the money line. Oh, Suns, easy live bet. I'm going to go home and be done. Well, like, I was already home, but you know what I mean? Like, going to be even further in the black. No, they lost. They choked. They gagged it away like gutless choking dogs. And I felt really dumb. And I went from hot streak to now 0 for 1 in my last one.
A couple of years ago, when Major League Baseball made the decision to expand their postseason, I firmly believed it was the wrong thing to do. And I thought it was the wrong thing to do because it further devalues your postseason, makes it more possible for teams that maybe aren't so deserving of an October bid to perhaps reach the World Series. And on second thought, I was right as hell because we have maybe the worst World Series matchup that we've ever gotten.
Wait a minute. That's not how that works. On second thought, I was right.
Why not? Why not flip it on its head a little bit?
Wow.
All righty, ready? On second thought, I was right because I won the survivor pool. On second thought, y'all thought you had a chance. On second thought, y'all trash.
That's rude.
No, my on second thought is I wasn't on board with the Justin Ross Kool-Aid. I staved off on it, and then he made one good catch, and then like a loser, I was all back in on it, and I said Justin Ross and Rashee Rice are the 2 most important wide receivers going forward for the Kansas City Chiefs. On second thought, I don't think Justin Ross is going to be that guy. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
Yeah. I probably would unhitch my wagon from that particular horse, personally.
It was a great play, though.
Yeah, I mean,
It sucked me in.
yeah, I get it.
This is why we're fans.
Yeah, you
know,
win some, you lose some.
Jordan Love, if he makes one good throw, Brandon's going to be all back on the Jordan Love bandwagon.
Nah, I'm too far for one throw at this point, unfortunately.
Oh.
It's not all his fault. It really isn't. Some of it is, though.
All righty, coming up next, we're going to talk with Matt Derrick on All Things Chiefs. Kansas City on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits phone line as we talk with our good friend Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. Matt Derrick on Twitter. He is our Chiefs insider. Matt, how you doing?
I am doing okay, even though I feel like we're skipping fall, Jake. I don't like this at all.
Yeah, I don't like it either because I'd rather have fall and no winter than go from have an extended summer into winter. Just eliminate winter.
Yeah, it's like we had like 2 days of fall. That was it. Maybe even like 6 hours, because it was like 80 degrees in Kansas City yesterday. And now it's cold and miserable and rainy. I'm just not in favor of it. I don't know who passed this, but I'm not in favor of it, Jake. Just not in favor of it.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Hey, Matt, real quick before we get to the Chiefs, are your Tigers going to beat the Dogs this weekend? Or, pardon me, that's next weekend, I suppose. The Tigers are off this weekend.
Week. They're off.
I knew they were playing Georgia next. But either way, you've got an extra week to prepare. Are they going to beat Georgia?
No. I mean, that's how I go into everything. As a Mizzou fan, you expect the worst and don't have any hope whatsoever, because then if you're pleasantly surprised, that's great.
Yo, Brendan is like, whoa, that's too real.
No, I mean, that's very real.
That's the life of a Mizzou fan. I mean, come on. I mean, the only thing I'm hoping for is that the game does not end up with a nickname of some sort, because, we had too many fifth downs and flea kickers and all this nonsense. I don't need any more of those in my life.
It's kind of like the opposite of a Chiefs fan, where you're like, you expect to win, and when something doesn't happen, you're like, yo, what the hell went on?
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's the exact opposite. That's why, life is so hard for those in the Venn diagram of Chiefs fans and Mizzou fans. I mean, they have the worst case of it, because they literally do. I mean, they're the fatalists when it comes to the Chiefs, because they're always going to be the ones that are glass half empty. Be like, oh, great, 3rd and 24. Chiefs aren't going to convert this. Well, yeah, they are, because they got Mahomes.
Yeah, that's why I say a Venn diagram of KU basketball fans and Chiefs fans is just a circle.
Yeah, that's pretty. No offense, that's a pretty unbearable group.
Hey, none of them are here. Like, Brandon's a KU fan, but he's not a Chiefs fan, so
that's true.
No,
I'm only half insufferable.
I mean that with love, but I will carve out a caveat here. Here's the worst group of fans. It's the Chiefs fans, Jayhawk basketball, and Husker football fans. Because if that's the group that you find yourself into,
the Jayskers, they got name for them up north.
Yeah, that is just not allowed.
Also describes people who root for Creighton basketball and Husker football.
Yes. All righty.
That at least makes a little bit of sense.
Let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs. Nick Bolton's injury. How big of a deal is that going forward with Drew Tranquill as a backup?
Because of that, exactly. I mean, it's not a huge deal to me. I mean, could it come back to haunt them over the next few weeks? I mean, it could, because Nick Bolton is that good. But from a setting the defense standpoint, I don't think they're going to miss anything. Drew has really picked things up. He's a really smart guy, high football IQ guy. So I don't think that they'll miss anything like they would have in past years, where there's just such a drop off from their top Mike linebacker to number 2 that be worried. In this case, no, I don't think there's a ton of worry. I mean, there's things that Drew can do better than Nick, and there's a lot of things that Nick can do better than Drew. But I mean, this team feels 100% confident in Drew Tranquill, and I don't think there's any reason to worry. I mean, yes, Nick is a better all-around player, but Drew has proved himself to be pretty handy himself.
We heard, Matt, from Spags yesterday, and you sort of alluded to it there, that he doesn't think there's much at all of a drop-off there going from Bolton to Tranquill. But what will the Chiefs be missing not having Bolton out there? Even though, Tranquill does some things, I think he's a better sideline-to-sideline linebacker than Bolton is, for example. What do they lose? Is it mostly that downhill run stopping? Is it the coordinating of the defense on the field? What is the biggest thing they lose without Bolton?
Yeah, to me, I think there's 3 things, and they're all kind of little tiny things. But one, I think you're definitely talking about run defense, because Drew's a fine tackler, all that. But you're right. I mean, Bolton is definitely, I think, the better downhill player. So that may be a small concern, in that the Chiefs, have had an occasional leak on the run defense. They had, one broken down play against the Chargers, even though, I mean, I think it's going to happen on occasion. But for me, it's not a huge worry. I think there's a little bit of maybe just the continuity that you've got, because this was year 3 for Nick. It's obviously year 1 for Drew. That's going to throw you off a little bit. And Bolton is such a leader on that defense. It has become one that I think you definitely miss his voice. And then, the last piece is just really depth. I mean, when Drew is forced to play more in the starting, means you're pulling him off of special teams, and he's been a really key special teams player. So now you're playing somebody else in his spot on special teams. He's playing more on defense, and you lose all your safety cushion. So now if he or Nick Bolton or Leo Chenal gets banged up during a game, now you're really dipping into your depth. So that to me those are the things that you really are going to be missing and concerned about. But hey, as long as they avoid any more injuries with that group, they should be fine.
What impressed you the most about the first week of the Charles Omenihu experience?
I think just how good he looked. I thought there would certainly be a little bit more rust, but considering he played 32 snaps, and it seemed like he was a factor in a lot of them, and was certainly productive. Was able to get around the quarterback and affect him, not just with the quarterback hits and the sack and the tipped pass, but just looked really comfortable. And I was just not expecting that. I mean, I thought there would be a little bit of rust from the layoff, maybe just not as sharp, but he looked really, really good. And, now you have to replicate it. You got to do it again. And, I know that he told us that he feels like he's a better player when he's mellow, and staying mellow against the Chargers was tough for him because he was pretty pumped up and excited. But, he also, his best preseason game was the first one he played with the Chiefs. And now he's had a really good game in his first regular season one. That's, I think, just going to be the tough part, is replicating it and backing it up. We'll see if he does play better when he's mellow, because that as fired up as he was on Sunday against the Chargers, I mean, I wouldn't expect to see him that fired up again until the Chiefs are in the playoffs or a Super Bowl.
We're talking to Matt Derrick. He is our Chiefs insider from ChiefsDigest.com. Make sure you go check out all of his coverage of the reigning Super Bowl champions at ChiefsDigest.com. You can also find Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick. He is our Chiefs insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline, joining us at this time every Friday afternoon. This game against Denver coming up on Sunday, 3:25 kickoff from Mile High. Andy Reid said on Wednesday, and I know he's never going to throw another team under the bus. He's not going to throw another coach under the bus. And he said, hey, look, Denver's playing better since the last time we saw them. They've made some adjustments since that game. They won the last time they played. They beat, sadly, the Green Bay Packers in a very, very ugly football game. Do you agree with Andy Reid? Do you feel like there are some signs of life that maybe we didn't see before from this Bronco team?
I mean, I don't see it, but it's only been one game. So I mean, what can you expect? And Brendan, I'm very, very sorry. I don't want to hurt your feelings when I say this, but that was just not much of a pillow fight between those two teams either.
Not sucked.
So,
I watched every single snap of it, Matt. It's the reality, and my favorite team stinks, and it's okay. I've come to grips with it.
And it happens, but those are two teams that were, at least they were fairly evenly matched, I think.
That's
but
true.
I didn't see anything from the Broncos that tells me that they've just suddenly improved after one game. But I guess we'll see what happens. But you're right. I mean, Andy Reid's never going to throw a team under the bus, and he's certainly not going to do it before he plays them. So I guess we shouldn't expect any less.
Talking again with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Did you expect Mecole Hardman's impact to be as immediate and as important as it was to the Chiefs last Sunday?
On offense, I mean, he got about what I thought he could and everything. I mean, I didn't know how they would squeeze him in. I mean, it certainly seemed like that because of him just arriving in late, that they were going to do what they ended up doing, which was just kind of throwing him into some plays that they already had drawn up. There was nothing in there that was just specific for Mecole Hardman. I mean, there were no jet sweeps. There was nothing about really putting him in motion. It was just, you could tell, I mean, he was just kind of taking some spots where other guys would normally have lined up. So this week, I would imagine you probably see the playbook open up a little bit more. Maybe some of the things that Mecole is good at and is specialized in, you'll see. But I thought there was a reasonable chance that special teams is where he could really make an impact. And obviously he did there. That 50-yard punt return was kind of classic Mecole, and we'll see if he can back that up and everything. But I think that's one of the biggest things that they were fairly excited about, was being able to get him back, was his impact on special teams. It might take him a little bit longer to just really, truly pick up everything on offense, and maybe get the Jets out of his head. But the fact that he seemed to be really happy, really comfortable, really confident, I think is a good sign that he's going to be able to pick things up pretty quickly and maybe even get more integrated into the offense.
When the Chiefs beat the Broncos a couple of Thursdays ago, they scored just 19 points. They weren't great in the red zone. Mahomes threw a pick down by the goal line. But there was also a lot of screw around, and I can't say the phrase I really want to use, but there's a lot of screw around in the way Andy Reid called that game offensively. There were a lot of inventive play calling decisions in certain parts of the field, and it felt very much like the Chiefs were trying to see if they could win that game in second gear on offense and maybe just try some things out. And ultimately they could. 19 was more than sufficient on that Thursday night. Do you think that the Chiefs maybe take it out of second gear this time around, maybe have a little bit more aggressiveness, maybe are a little bit more straightforward, and maybe put the throttle down a little bit more on offense in this second meeting?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but it seems like maybe once a year there's a swing like this where you play a team twice, one of your division rivals, in back-to-back games really closely. And I think we've even, when Andy Reid's faced some potential playoff opponents in December and January at the end of the season, that, you see two different games. That the first time around, that it's a little more, closer to the vest as far as play call goes. I think against the Broncos, at least, first and second down was pretty vanilla. It was third down and short, and some of those calls where they got a bit adventurous. But then again, I even think that's part of an Andy Reid plan. He comes sometimes he wants to see how things work, or he wants to run some things and put them on film to know that he can run a variation off of that later. And there's sometimes he just wants to show teams that he's got something in his bag and has that club that he can swing if he wants to. But I do. I expect this to be a little bit more of an open game plan. I think it's something more that we're used to. Chiefs did not have any trouble moving the football against the Broncos, even with I thought was a fairly vanilla, first and second down plan. It was just in the red zone and on third down where they had some troubles executing. If they tighten that up, maybe just stick with more of their bread and butter plays in the red zone, I think it's going to be a different outcome this time around. They were 1-5 in the red zone last time. They were 3-4 against the Chargers. I'm expecting it to be a much more efficient performance this time around.
What about this matchup gives you pause, if anything, gives you a little pause? The Chiefs are 7.5-point favorites. They've obviously owned the Broncos going on 8 years now and 16 consecutive meetings. They seem to really have this team's number. But is there anything that the Broncos do or that the Broncos have shown that make you think, okay, if this happens, Denver's got a chance here, and it could get a little hairy for the Chiefs?
Yeah, and I thought that this was, what kind of happened in that game in Denver last year when the Broncos, came back on the Chiefs and really gave them some fits and everything, is that, maybe it's just Russell Wilson himself just gets into the mindset of, hey, you know what, let's just let it fly. He's still the guy who's going to make that offense go. And if he just gets into when I think he was last year against the Chiefs was just kind of a, let's let it rip. Let's not worry about all the nonsense that's going around. Let's just go out there and have fun and throw the football around. If they get into that mindset, I think the Broncos offense can actually be some trouble. Now they've got to protect him a little bit, which they have just not been doing at all. And, I don't know if he and Sean Payton are on the same page yet. That's, even an option. But if Russell, as we like to say, gets the cooking, then that is entirely how the Broncos are going to be able to surprise anybody in winning the games, is if he has a game. And he played one of those last year against the Chiefs, and he's certainly capable of doing it again.
Outside of Russell Wilson possibly going off, which playmaker for the Broncos would worry you the most if you're the Chiefs?
Oh, that's a really good question. I still worry about the run game. Even though the Chiefs have been so good against it this year, and they had the one breakdown against Joshua Kelly against the Chargers. The Broncos still have some guys in that backfield that can run the football. So that to me would be the scary thing. Especially if that offensive line actually, gets a good game plan and executes for once. I still think that's the problem. I think it is a better run blocking line than it is a pass protection line anyway. But I like those guys. Javonte Williams is a good running back. He runs a good running back. I mean, they've got some guys who can give you some trouble out of the backfield, but they just need to give him the opportunity, and they need to make some plays. And that's something that, the Chiefs haven't been giving up a lot of. But you know what? Without Nick Bolton, maybe that's something that the Broncos want to test.
All right, Matt. Chiefs are favored by 7.5 in this one. That's actually down. Opened up at 8.5. So the pro bettors, or in my case, the idiot public bettors, they're on the Broncos to keep this one a little bit closer. It is moved to 7.5. Can the Chiefs cover that number?
I mean, it's probably a safe bet to think that the Broncos are going to play it close, because the Chiefs seem to do this with some teams, let them play into it and stick around, and the Broncos have given the Chiefs some problems at times. I mean, even when they haven't been very good, but I think this is just too much of a mismatch. I think the second time around in a short period of time favors the Chiefs, and I think they want to work some things out and prove that there's a distance between these two clubs. So I think the Chiefs roll in this one. We'll see if the weather plays a factor, but I'm going with the Chiefs 38-16.
Outside of this individual matchup, following the win over the Chargers last week, is the division over? Like, is it completely done for?
I mean, I think so. I can't imagine, barring injuries to this team, knock on wood, that there's any way that these guys can catch them. I mean, no, I think it's too much of a gap, because I certainly don't see the Chiefs losing 2 games in the division. I mean, much less more than that. So, you'd have to, somebody's going to have to beat the Chiefs eventually to win this division and then stay undefeated. And I'm not sure any of them can.
What is the most impressive streak that is on the line in this matchup? Is it 16 straight wins over the Broncos for the Chiefs dating back to 2015? Is it Patrick Mahomes' incredible, 13-0 record on the road against divisional opponents, or is it something else maybe we haven't even touched on yet?
I think it's a 16-0. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, that's an entire season undefeated against a team. I mean, that's just crazy. And considering how competitive that this rivalry has been and was over the years before now, I mean, that's just, to me, the most ridiculous part. The road games and Mahomes versus a team, those things kind of ebb and flow. But, this is, you just shouldn't be able to beat a team like this many times in a row. It's just absolutely crazy. I mean, and the Chiefs, I mean, honestly, unless the Broncos just all of a sudden wake up in the next couple of years, this streak could easily reach 20. I mean, I don't see it getting over with anytime soon, barring an absolute miracle.
Nobody covers the Kansas City Chiefs better than Matt Derrick. He does it for ChiefsDigest.com, and he joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider. Go check out ChiefsDigest.com. Follow Matt on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. Matt, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the off week for your Missouri Tigers, and enjoy the game for the Chiefs on Sunday.
I appreciate it, and have fun with Kansas, Oklahoma tomorrow. That's going to be a heck of a game.
You know what? I sure hope it's a heck of a game. That is at the very least my hope. Appreciate it, Matt.
Take care, everybody.
That is the one and only Matt Derrick joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We've got to get to a break. We'll come on back, start the 4 o'clock hour with our weekly picks right here on 580 Sports Talk.
3, 580 Sports Talk coming your way on a Friday. That's right. It is a Red Friday edition. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero with you. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Zach Stevens of DNVR will join us. So we had a chance to talk with him earlier today because Sean Payton just spoke to the media. Sean Payton not interested in whether or not Taylor Swift is there. So, folks.
Oh, no way.
It is gotten to the point now where it's not just Kansas City media are asking and talking about it, but other NFL teams' media is asking their head coach about Travis Kelce's girlfriend.
There's only but so many ways you can ask, why are you so bad? Did you think it would be this bad? Can you believe you're this bad? So, you got to freshen it up at the press conferences. Got to ask about some new things. Got to bring some new stuff to the table.
Also, if you're a content creator, a media member, and you're trying to drive traffic and interest in your website, you know what you should do? Write about Taylor Swift. Because you know what's going to happen? People will come check out your website.
Two things. One, I did not know that Morgan Freeman is a Chiefs fan. I did not know that. Did not know that.
I didn't know either.
Okay. Didn't know that. Apparently he likes to watch Mahomes run around and make plays.
Him and Henry Winkler.
Right? The Fonz, big Chiefs fan. Big Chiefs
Big
fan.
Mahomes fan anyway.
Yeah. To the point where Mahomes, I wonder if, do you think Mahomes will take up on Henry Winkler's home cooked chicken, whatever?
I hope so.
At some point,
I hope that happens.
Hey, anybody offers to cook me a home cooked meal, like, I'm in there, man. I'll make it happen. Like, especially if it's the Fonz.
All right.
I mean, look, good times. Happy Days. Very similar.
Good times, happy days, same kind of situation. We know where you were going with.
The Fonz on Good Times would have made that a very different show.
Yes, he would.
JJ on Happy Days, they would have looked at him real funny when he walked into that bar, probably.
Correct,
when he walked in the restaurant. But no, Happy Days was like before my time.
Yeah.
I remember watching the reruns of it. I used to actually watch Happy Days reruns. They showed on Nick at Night.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So
I remember watching
along
them
with
as a kid.
Bewitched.
Yeah. So I used to watch, like, I'm up on Happy Days. I'm up on Ron Howard and Arthur Fonzarelli and all that. I don't remember. Archie Cunningham? Is that his name?
Yes.
Richie
Cunningham. Yeah. So I'm up on all that. Yeah. But I don't know how Mahomes would have been up on Happy Days. Like, I wonder if he had to do his Googles and figure out why the Fonz.
No, he knows. You know who the Fonz is. One, because Mahomes a nerd.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
But still, I think for a certain generation, you look at Henry Winkler and you think, oh, that's Mr. Coach Klein from the Waterboy.
Mr. Coach Klein, why are you scared of Ed Boru? Can you tell me that? I am petrified.
I mean, I watched Happy Days reruns on Nick at Night when I was a kid, and Mahomes is only a year younger than I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
those lasted a little longer than I thought.
I think the Fonz character is just, I think
the Fonz is just one of those iconic.
And even Mahomes was asked about it, and even he says, yeah, how do you not know the Fonz? Of course, Mahomes is he cares a lot about his image that he portrays. That's why, he said, the Denver defense is just an incredible unit. But yeah, I hope Patrick Mahomes. Anywho, Morgan Freeman, Chiefs fan, was asked on one of the morning shows on one of the networks about the Mahomes or the Kelce and Swift relationship. And he said, I do not think about that. Why are you asking me this? And to which the answer is correct.
What do you think Morgan Freeman's favorite Taylor Swift song is?
He said that he goes, I know of her music because it's played a lot.
Sure. I'm asking what his favorite song is.
I don't know.
I feel like he'd say something pretty cliche. He'd be like, yeah, you belong with me or something like that.
Really fell in love when Teardrops on My Guitar came out in 2006.
Yep.
I like the Kendrick part on Bad Blood.
Yeah.
But Morgan Freeman, Chiefs fan, did not know that.
How about that?
Did not know that. Learned that today. All right, let's get to our picks, you guys.
Congratulations. First and foremost, you won the Survivor pool.
Thank you. Gosh, man. That's awesome. What do I get for that?
To brag. I'll give you 30 seconds. Say whatever you want.
No one believed in me.
That's a fact.
Even though I was the defending champ of the survivor pool, yet still I had my doubters. But because of my strong football acumen, which apparently right now is better than everybody's, because 1, I won the survivor pool. 2, I'm up by 2 games in the pick'ems here. So I hope you guys are taking my advice. You'd be up 8 games right now.
Let your haters be your waiters when you sit down at the table of success.
Exactly. All right, let's get to it. I will start things off. I think Iowa State coming off a bye, taking on Baylor. I like Iowa State to win by 2.5. I think Baylor stinks. Iowa State actually playing well. Baylor could barely get by Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's not any good. So give me Iowa State. And then I'm going to take Oklahoma State. I'm going to ride the Cincinnati sucks train. So we're going to go with Oklahoma State minus 7.5. But if anything, this is the game that maybe snipes Oklahoma State. I'm going to take Oklahoma State minus 7.5. Here's the thing. The hook has destroyed me this year. I might be undefeated if the hook didn't exist. Don't fact check that.
Sounds to me like you need to make better picks.
Riding the Cincinnati sucks train. If you Google that, make sure you do it in an incognito window and not at work.
So that's my college football picks this week.
All right, I've got one huge favorite and one single score underdog.
I like your JMU pick because they've been destroying people.
Destroying teams, and I just don't think Old Dominion is all that hot. And I think James Madison should be able to take care of business at home. 20.5 is the number. That's fine with me. I think James Madison's best team in that league.
Old Dominion, better band than school.
Good women's basketball history.
How old do you think that school is? If someone was to say, when do you think Old Dominion University was founded?
1900.
Like before the dinosaurs.
Like 1965. It's a very new school, but it sounds super old.
So it's New Dominion.
It is New Dominion. For what it's worth, because now I have to make sure I know for sure. Okay, 1930. Well, no. 1962. It originally
Where are you coming up with these numbers here?
It originally opened as a branch of the College of William and Mary, and then it became its own school in the 60s.
Better band than school.
Yeah.
I like Old Dominion. They're a good band.
They're fine. And I'm going with Utah plus 6.5 against Oregon. I know I said just the other day that Oregon, I think, is still a playoff contender, and I agree. I do believe that to be true. You're going to give me 6.5 points with that defense and with Kyle Whittingham at home. I'm taking it every time.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Utah can beat Oregon?
Yes.
Then you take Utah.
Yeah, I mean,
if you think the team can beat the opposing team, you always take the points. I don't think Cincinnati can beat Oklahoma State. I don't think Baylor can beat Iowa State.
I think Baylor's got a better chance of beating Iowa State than Cincinnati over Oklahoma State.
Correct.
If I had to pick one. But yeah, I'm going with...
that's why the point spread's smaller.
Well, that's also true. Yeah, Utah plus 6.5 against Oregon at Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Yeah.
Tough to beat Utah at home. But, man, I don't know about that offense. I think Oregon's defense is legit.
Good. I think they're good.
I think they're really good.
Unless you got like Michael Penix on the other side.
I think that Utah is going to struggle to move the ball against Oregon. It'd be a great game. I could certainly see Utah covering, but that's my concern for the Utes on Saturday in Salt Lake City.
The total for that game, by the way, is down to 47.5. For Utah to win, it's got to go under. They cannot win a shootout with that offense.
Parker Fleming, who goes by Statso War on Twitter and puts out like stats-based previews and predictions, probability models for every game. It's a must follow if you are a college football fan, particularly if you like to gamble on college football. You should definitely follow his account. His predicted score, like the model's projected score for that game, is like 17-9 Oregon.
Hell yeah.
Real ball.
Love that.
Anyway, my two picks, I I actually submitted mine first, so Jake's copying my homework, but I like Oklahoma State minus 7.5 against Cincinnati. I think that's the worst team in the Big 12. And Oklahoma State, I've seen enough of to conclude that they are good, or at the very least that Ollie Gordon is really good, and Cincinnati doesn't have an Ollie Gordon. So I think Oklahoma State's going to run away and hide in Stillwater. And then it's my turn for a dumpster juice pick of the week. Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan in the battle of the directional Michigans.
Love it.
Eastern Michigan is a 2.5-point dog at home. A lot of the models say wrong team favored here. So I am taking the Eagles to cover the 2.5 over the Chips.
So what is that?
Actually, no, the Broncos. Sorry.
What is that?
Central Michigan's the Chips.
That's a great name. Ypsilanti up against Kalamazoo. Yeah, that's a great name.
Go ahead, continue.
Yeah,
Do you think? Do you, Dan?
Yeah, that's a good one.
All
so
right.
you're going with Ypsilanti.
Yeah, the gray turf.
God, it sucks.
You turn a game on at that stadium and you briefly wonder, did I break my TV? Did the color blow out on my television?
Hideous.
All righty. We're going to the NFL now. Dan, I'll have you fire away since you just started. What do you got?
All right. I'm laying the 7.5 with Kansas City. I don't think they're going to mess around on Sunday, and I am fairly confident they will beat the Denver Broncos by more than one score. And then I'm on the Monday night game too. Another touchdown plus number here, but I think this is a bounce back spot at home. It's the first Monday night football game in Detroit in a long time. What is it, like 2016?
2018.
2018? Yeah, 5 years. Long time. Monday Night Football, crowd's going to be cranked up.
Vegas isn't very good.
The Raiders are a clown show. I've got Detroit.
Detroit
minus 7.5. I think that's a blowout.
Yeah. Brandon, what do you got?
All right, I've got Tennessee plus 2.5 at home against Atlanta. Will Jeans is going to make his first career start. And I'm willing to make a proclamation right now.
Yikes.
Will Levis is a better NFL quarterback already than Desmond Ridder.
All right. Okay, that's fine. I'm not here to pen that on second thought next week if Atlanta and Desmond Ridder goes out and just throttles Tennessee.
You know, I've been on the fade Ridder train all year. It bit me last year, but I don't think fading Desmond Ridder is a bad play, even with Will Levis.
He stinks. He is so bad. And I'm going with a big favorite. Miami over New England.
Even without potentially no Tyreek Hill?
Dolphins favored by 9.5. Do you know how many times Tua has lost to a Bill Belichick coached team in his career?
Zero.
Give me Miami minus 9.5.
Sounds like Mostert and Hill are likely to play.
Yeah, Tyreek said yesterday he's playing.
He's playing? Okay.
He told us yesterday as we got to in headlines that he had to make sure he got attention earlier in the week because his mama wouldn't give him any.
Right on.
Yeah, that's what he said. It needed to be said.
I was wondering if you're going to follow that up.
Of course.
It needed to be said is the name of his podcast, for those of you wondering.
Bring it back.
Where
mid-season episode.
When his podcast struggles, he just says something bad about
He's going to be on Hard Knocks. He got the Hard Knocks in season is the Dolphins, so he'll have a chance to promote the podcast.
They're just going to leave the camera on him the whole time because every other Dolphin is pissed about it. Like Tua's mad. Jalen Waddle. Who's the other one? Xavier Howard maybe is super mad about it. They all hate it.
What?
That Hard Knocks in season is coming.
No one likes it. My NFL picks. Philly's playing really well right now. AJ Brown is a monster. I almost went with that as my pick because his over under. He's over 125 yards. It seems like every single game right now. He's been absolutely crushing it. What is his over under right now? I might change my pick for my prop pick. What do we got here?
No, it's already going up on the website. You're locked in.
Gosh, AJ Brown over 89 yards feels like a lock. But I feel good about my other one. Anyway, I like Philly minus 7 over Washington. Washington's not very good right now. So give me Philly. And
Philly covered Washington covered the last time they played.
Yeah, but they didn't play Philly. I think Philadelphia's.
No, I'm telling you, the last time they played Philly, they covered.
Oh, well, I'm still on Philly minus 7. I did not fade my picks this week. These are my picks. Like, I think these are good picks.
All right, we'll see how that goes.
Probably not well. My college picks have been very good. NFL picks, not so much. And then I'm going Minnesota minus 1.5 on Green Bay. I know this is on the road, but I don't know if Green Bay is any good.
We're not.
They're not. And I feel like Minnesota's playing well. So give me Minnesota minus 1.5 over the Packers on the road. And then my prop, Tulane and the side dish Rice. They're going to score a lot of points. I like the over at 53.5. Tulane scores a bunch. They score about 35 a game. Rice actually scores.
Delicious.
Rice is
JT Daniels throwing for 300 yards a game.
Rice,
West Virginia, great.
High scoring affair.
The youngest McCaffrey also putting up some good numbers for them this year, I believe. Vandy overs are back. Vandy had a bye last week. We're going for 7 in a row. Vandy, Ole Miss, 63.5 is the number.
But you got the Lane train.
I got the Lane train.
Yeah.
Lane's not a big ease off the gas kind of coach.
Yeah. And is Ole Miss defense any good? Maybe you'll get some points from Vandy.
We might get some points from Vandy. 63.5. Vandy overs back on the menu.
Vandy game hasn't gone over 60 in the last 4. Just so you know.
That's fine.
You ride her till she bucks you.
Yeah,
right?
I'm riding with the Vandy over.
We're all on overs for our wild card picks. Mine, though, was an NFL over. Risky business because they haven't been scoring a lot of points in the NFL. But I like the over 43.5 in Bengals 49ers. And I like it for 2 reasons. Number one, I don't think the San Francisco defense has played to their reputation.
Do you know who
this year?
Bosa really good. The last time someone other than Nick Bosa to get a sack for the 49ers is like 4 games ago.
And
not good.
Their secondary has struggled as well. So I think there are some points there to be had for Joe Burrow and company. And I think that San Francisco's offense won't miss a beat with Sam Darnold because I think he and Brock Purdy are roughly equivalent in terms of.
Well, it sounds like he's going to play.
Is that what's out there? Is that Purdy will clear because he would be the first player this year to clear concussion protocol in the same week and play.
Yeah,
that has not happened anywhere else in the NFL this year.
It sounds like
if he
might play.
If he plays, then they're definitely going to get into the 20s. And if he doesn't, I still think they can get into the 20s because I think Sam Darnold can do the point and shoot, throw to the wide open guy stuff.
It sounds like he's officially questionable, but it sounds like he's going to play.
Yeah, Matt Mayoko of NBC Sports in San Francisco appears to be on place to play as long as there's no setback to receive full clearance.
He's their best beat writer. That's reliable.
Yep. All righty, those are our picks. Survivor pool picks. Oh, wait, I forgot.
Oh, my God.
I was the victor. Coming up next week.
Oh, my God.
To the victor go the spoils.
That's our bad for letting him win, Brandon. We got to be better.
Simply,
we have to be better.
Coming up next, we got What is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports.
Let's find a weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You, shall we? Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. We've got one that has been a strong story since Tuesday, the fake cop, fake Gronk. Can it beat our two news stories today? We're about to find out. Before we get there, a reminder that Top City Metal Supply cuts the metal you need to your specifications. That saves you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to your metal with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. A quick reminder, fake cop, fake Gronk. A 62-year-old gentleman in the Tampa area who, a couple Sundays ago, driving around in his red GMC pickup truck with cheap spinning red and blue lights on his dashboard, was intimidating and pulling over other motorists on Interstate 75. You can't do that. He was eventually arrested. By the way, he wasn't even dressed up like a police officer while doing this. He was just wearing his Rob Gronkowski jersey.
Yeah.
That's our current winner for the week.
It's the best part of it. Like, if it were guy in Rob Gronkowski jersey does something, I mean, that'd be a little funny. If it's guy pulling people over in an obviously not fit for police work vehicle with obviously not police grades flashing lights sitting in his dashboard, that'd be another thing. It's the fact that he did both of those things. Is that there were people out there who were freaking out when they saw flashing red and blue lights, even though they were the caliber of light you'd see like at your local Chuck E. Cheese or kids play place. And then getting out is some old silver-haired dude in a Rob Gronkowski jersey. Like,
so funny.
All right, man. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm not sticking around for this.
I'll take the, bumped up charges.
Yeah.
I'll live with it.
I will pay to find out that this doofus in a Gronk jersey is a real cop.
In a Tampa Bay Buccaneers jersey from Fanatics, Rob Gronkowski, wearing number 78, is actually a cop.
Scott Gronkowski under the number 87 on the back, like a
WNBA jersey.
Like a throwback Pete Maravich jersey.
All right, Dan, you're up first today.
All right, we're going to Italy. And we meet a story straight out of a Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly movie. The proportion of Italian adults still living with their parents has long been high, but one mother was forced to take drastic actions after her two sons, both in their 40s, refused to abandon the comforts of the family home. The 75-year-old woman from the northern city of Pavia had grown weary of having to maintain her sons, ages 40 and 42, and on several occasions tried to convince them to find a more autonomous living arrangement, especially as each had a job. But neither of them wanted to move. The mother was also annoyed that her sons did not contribute to the household expenses or chores, so she took them to court, culminating with a judge sympathizing with her plight and issuing an eviction order against them.
Oh, that's funny.
Mom got her adult kids evicted. In the judge's ruling, the judge, a woman judge, Simona Katerbi, said that while the men still living at home was initially warranted due to the obligation of the parent to provide maintenance, it was no longer justifiable given that they were over 40. The men have until December 18th to move out. Now,
it's the Steve Carell law.
This has been a bit of a trend in Italy. Almost 70% of people in Italy aged between 18 and 34 still live at home with their parents. That is a staggering number.
I'm sorry. 70?
Yes. 73% of men, 66% of women living with their parents in Italy between the ages of 18 and 34.
I know other countries and other cultures have different ways they handle your expanded family relationships.
Yes,
right?
And the story is about to address that.
Okay.
Although there has always been a culture in Italy of multiple generations living under one roof, the number of young adults staying longer in the family home has risen in recent years, mostly as a result of tough economic conditions and the lengthy amount of time it takes to find a stable job. However, many are dismissed as bamboccioni or big babies. A term first used by an Italian politician to mock adults still living with their parents, and which suggests that some do it for the convenience of free room and board. While an eviction order is rare, there have been cases in Italy of parents being taken to court by their adult children who still expect financial support. Those cases typically are rejected.
Good.
So
I don't know about taking the kids to court here. I definitely know about not taking the parents to court.
Look, She's 75. She did her part, man. She got those children through childhood into early adulthood. Maybe they fell on some hard times. It sounds like that may have been a possibility. And again, culturally, it's a little bit differently than it is around here, where, being an empty nester is more common here than it is maybe in other cultures. But it gets to a point where you got to do your part around the house, take out the trash, maybe chip in a little for rent, or I'm going to need you to get out of here so I can enjoy the fruits of 75 years of labor and enjoy my space to myself.
I want to just go and watch reruns of Night Court and fall asleep at 8:30 like any other old person. Get out of my house. No, I respect it. I don't know if I would have taken him to court, but I do respect the move, honestly. My story will take us to Tampa, Florida. We've been busy there this week.
What do you know?
Where a Florida man is being charged for housing an alligator in a 35-gallon aquarium in his garage. A Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation officer responded to an Orlando area home where he questioned 28-year-old Christopher Abelard if there was an alligator in or outside the home. The officer said Christopher grinned at the question and opened the garage, revealing a 3.5-foot American alligator in a 35-gallon tank. Like, dude, why are you smirking at the guy? This isn't going to end well for you. The man told the officer he didn't know anything about the gator, given that it was his dad's, 50-year-old Gene Abelard's house. Christopher then showed the officer 5 boa constrictors in other aquariums in another part of the garage. Ew. According to the Fish and Wildlife Conservation group, when asked where the gator came from, Christopher told the officer he didn't want to be involved. The officer then said, Christopher, please call your father. When the officer spoke to the dad, Gene said he picked the alligator up on September 23rd when he saw it crossing the road. He told the officer he didn't want someone to run it over, so he didn't want someone to run it over, pick it up, take it home, and eat it. So he took it. He also claimed he was going to take it to a place, I'm not kidding, called Gatorland the following Saturday.
Boy, I bet.
Due to the lack of the required Class 2 permit to possess an alligator, the animal was seized from the home. The FWC report said not only was the aquarium small, but it was dirty and only had a small mesh top with a dumbbell holding it down. Gene was charged with first-degree misdemeanor for unlawful sale, possession, and transporting of alligators, and a second-degree misdemeanor for violation of Florida administrative codes pertaining to wildlife as pets. I love the kid who's just snickering at the officer, like, oh, you want to see an alligator? What about an alligator and snakes?
I got a whole thing here. Yeah, a whole wild America here.
Yeah, we got Gator King living down in Tampa. And we've got a picture of the tank, by the way. It is small. Like, the gator's tail is curled in the corner. It can't stretch all the way out.
Yeah, it's not a real comfortable place for the gator to be. Man, get that thing to Gatorland. Do it now.
Yeah, what's
the best time to do that is right now.
You might not be home. Your kid clearly is. But take that tank to Gatorland and get them taken care of.
Like, on the one hand, like, good for you for being a good Samaritan for this gator. And shout out to the gator for not eating you. You're trying to keep it from being eaten or getting run over on the road. Like, I respect that. I think that's a humane thing to do, and I have a certain amount of respect for that. But it then becomes inhumane when you're just storing it in your garage.
Okay, I figured Gatorland was a wildlife sanctuary. No, it's an amusement park that just has alligators.
Yes.
The alligator capital of the world in Orlando, Florida, where you can ride the Stompin' Gator Adventure and take pictures with them.
That sounds fun as hell, man. I'm in. Go to Gatorland.
I figured it was
5
like a
sports talk field trip to Gatorland.
Wildlife refuge. Oh, my God. All right, Dan, who do you got?
Oh, 2 really good stories today. A mom sued her kids. Her very adult kids.
See, but she won. The courts were like, no, you're right, ma'am. Like, it's hard for me to assign what is wrong with you when the courts agree.
This is true. It's not really a what is wrong with you for suing your kids. It's one for the kids to lose.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But no, I'll go with the Gator guy. Again, I think the intentions were good at the beginning, but then to just keep it like
just drive straight there.
Yes. Like,
have your kid do it.
Take it directly to Gatorland. No, I'm gonna store it next to my, my beer fridge and like my step ladder and my push broom and all the other, miscellaneous stuff you've got, and my snakes.
My Bud Light Buccaneers schedule poster from 2004. Gatorland. I can't get over that. I don't think this beats fake cop, fake Gronk.
No, it does not. Or fake Gronk, fake cop, however you want to phrase that one. By any other name, I think that's our winner for the week.
I think so too. Brought to you as always by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Shout out to the fake cop, fake Gronk. 4 days a winner this week. We've got to get to a break. When we come back, we'll hear from Zach Stevens, covers the Broncos for DNVR here on 580 Sports Talk.
Welcome back into 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Jake LeBon joining you for this interview as we welcome in on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, Zach Stevens of DNVR, part of the All City Network, covers the Denver Broncos. Going to give us the Broncos eye view on Sunday's game at Mile High Stadium between the Broncos and the Chiefs. And Zach, first thing we have to ask you, take the temperature of Broncos country for us a little bit, because they are coming off of a win that a lot of Bronco fans think is actually a bad thing because they want to tank and see their team go trade for a quarterback. Give us the temperature. Give us a read of how things are in Broncos country right now at this stage of the season.
Yeah, coming off a win, it kind of calms everything down a little bit. But, I mean, the water is 1 degree away from boiling. A win kind of calms it down. But you look at the Broncos' 2 wins. being at 2-5 right now, they're about as unimpressive as wins as you can possibly get. They beat the Bears, and they had to make a big comeback against the Bears. That's when the Bears were winless, too. Broncos had to make a big comeback in order to beat them. So not very impressive win there. And then they beat the Packers, who the more I watch the Packers, the more I think they could be one of the worst teams in the NFL. The Broncos barely beat the Packers at home. So about as unimpressive as a wins as you can have. And you know who knows that? Is Sean Payton himself. After both games, it's losing head coach, because Sean Payton knows just how far this team still has to go. And now you have the Kansas City Chiefs on deck. And the Chiefs, we all know, dominate the Broncos. 16-game winning streak. And the Broncos heading on a bye after this week, and the trade deadline just 48 hours later. I think a lot of the future for this Broncos team rides on this game in terms of what trades will or won't be made.
What's been the biggest issue for the defense? It has gotten a little better, but the Broncos or the Packers offense isn't, outstanding right now. So I don't know if that's a huge barometer. But what happened from last year to this year for this Denver defense?
Yeah, the defense started falling off a cliff at the end of last year. And actually, Broncos inside linebacker Alex Singleton called out last year's defense a couple of weeks ago, said we, quote, sucked the last 3 games of the season. And you can look, they did. So the fall actually started last year and continued even worse at the start of this year. And the biggest reason for that was through the first 5 games, the Broncos were on pace to have the second worst defense of all time, giving up over 35 points per game. And that was mainly because of their run defense. They could not stop anyone. In fact, the Broncos had one of the worst stretches in the history of the NFL defending the run, giving up over 250 yards per game on the ground, which is just so difficult to wrap your mind around, especially in a passing league that we're in right now. But the run defense over these past few weeks, when they've given up an average of 18 points per game, has really improved. So that's been where it started. And so they've kind of had to make teams one-dimensional by shutting down the run defense. And this is another big test. Kansas City, the first time these two met, they held them to 19 points. That was by far the best defense the Broncos have played. Can they do it again? That's such a big ask to be able to do that to Kansas City. But it's really been the run defense that has stepped up, and the Broncos still statistically overall have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. But as they stand right now, the past 2 or 3 weeks, they've been significantly better than the start of the season.
Can Russell Wilson do anything to change his reputation there in Denver, or do you think it's pretty much set in stone if as we go forward?
Yeah, we're talking about something drastic to happen for Russ to really change his reputation by the end of this season and solidify himself as a fan favorite and be a starting quarterback for the Broncos going into 2024. And when I say drastic, I mean the Broncos started this season 1-5. If they get to 500 by the end of the season, that would be a drastic shift. And then I think people would be bought into Russ, but I don't see that happening. And really, when you look at the way Sean Payton approaches game plans week in and week out, I don't think he trusts Russell Wilson. Russ has had a much better statistical season this year from last year, but I think a lot of that has been Sean Payton putting him in right positions and just wanting him to not lose the game for them. And so I just don't think that this pairing of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson is going to go well for the long term. And I don't think Sean Payton wants Russell Wilson to be his quarterback for the long term. And the interesting thing about Russ's contract, the way it is, if he's on the team in March of next year, 5 days after the new league year begins, his 2025 contract kicks in and is fully guaranteed. So if he's on the team next year in 2024, he's on the team the following year in 2025 as well. So it's a big decision the Broncos are going to have to make going into this offseason. Are we moving on from Russ and taking the biggest dead cap of any player in the history in the NFL by almost double? Or are we going to roll with Russ, not just for 1 year, but for 2 years?
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is Zach Stevens, who covers the Denver Broncos for DNVR, part of the All City Network. Kind enough to join us to talk a little bit about what's going on in Broncos country and preview Sunday's home matchup for the Broncos against the Kansas City Chiefs. I want to ask about play on the lines for the Broncos, Zach, and I want to start with the defensive line, which not a lot of household names on that group, and the ones who were household names have already moved on. Randy Gregory has found a new team. Frank Clark has found a new team. Those players, those veterans have already been jettisoned by the Broncos. They just got Baron Browning back. Nick Benito's put up some numbers. How are you feeling about this Denver pass rush? Do you think it has some juice, some potential? Do you think it can be impactful over the course of 60 minutes against the Chiefs' offensive line?
Yeah, the Broncos, I mean, they really started the youth movement and playing for the future with that outside linebacker group by essentially trading Randy Gregory and paying Randy Gregory to leave and go to the 49ers. They just swapped picks. So that was essentially just saying, get out of here. Frank Clark, they just released because there is talent, young talent with that offensive line group with Nick Benito. He was a second-round pick by the Broncos last year, had an incredibly disappointing rookie season. People were already starting to write him off. And then he has had a really good season, has showed that second-round potential. Jonathan Cooper is a guy that you can really count on. He's probably a borderline starter or a really, really good backup, a guy that you can trust in the run game and the pass game. And then Baron Browning, he's kind of the wild card here. If Baron Browning over these next 10 games can prove that he's a starter, then the Broncos are set at outside linebacker. If not, well, then that's a need for them again, and they may be looking at like a first-round pick in order to get an outside linebacker. And the Broncos have just tried to get that outside linebacker help for these last few years while they've released outside linebackers and moved on from outside linebackers, as in Von Miller, as in Bradley Chubb. So there's certainly potential there. There's hope there, and there's reasonable hope. I mean, it's not just they're hoping on a prayer here. They could have their answers at outside linebacker. And then on the inside of the defensive line, I mentioned it, they had the worst stretch in the history of the Broncos for a 3-game stretch in terms of running the ball. The defensive line hasn't been the best. Zach Allen's been okay. DJ Jones has been okay, but when you've struggled that much against the run, it typically starts with the defensive line.
On the offensive line, it feels like the wisdom of crowds and the wisdom of the metrics are saying two very different things about the way that the Broncos offensive line has performed. The metrics are quite kind, in fact, to this offensive line, both in the run game and the passing game. But I know enough Bronco fans, Zach, that they're still not thrilled about Garrett Bowles' play at left tackle at all times. They feel like Mike McGlinchey might have been a little bit overpaid in free agency. So where does the truth lie here? Is this a Denver offensive line that is actually starting to gel together and play better, or is it a line that is too prone to the big penalty or giving up the big sack?
You know, I heard someone once say that if you don't have a top 5 offensive line, then your fan base thinks your offensive line absolutely stinks. And I think that's kind of where the Broncos are right now. They don't have a top 5 offensive line, but they definitely have a good enough offensive line. But because it's not top 5, fans think they stink and want to replace every single one of them. So I think that the truth is in the middle here. Garrett Bowles has quietly had a really good season. Now, a top 5 tackle in the NFL, probably not, but a really good season, especially you're paying him $17 million. He's probably playing up to that $17 million contract. Lloyd Cushenberry, who's got a lot of heat, understandably so, entering this season, is having by far his best season in the NFL. In fact, he's tied with Jason Kelsey, who's the best center in the NFL, arguably, for having the fewest hurries allowed among centers. So he's having a really good season. And then the Broncos guards are playing well. Not fantastic, not great, but they're playing okay. They're playing fine. And Mike McGlinchey, he has been probably the weak link on this offensive line, and that's tough when he's your highest paid guy, when he's your highest paid free agent that you bring in. He's been a disappointing, probably not living up to that contract. So that's certainly where you look and say, man, that's a tough one, especially because the Broncos are stuck with that big contract for the next couple of years. But so I tend to lean with the metrics and say that this Broncos offensive line is getting it done, especially in the run game. And Sean Payton needs to help this offensive line out, help this offense out by sticking with the run, and Sean has talked about it for a couple of weeks now. He says, I need to stick with the run. I've got away from the run at times. And this offensive line is built to run the ball. They're not built to drop back 45 times. Russell Wilson's not built to drop back 45 times. This wide receiver room is not built to drop back 45 times and throw the ball. So when the Broncos get in those situations where they're just forced to throw the ball, it's not good all around. And that is on the offensive line. When they just go downhill and run the ball with Javonte Williams, Jaleel, and also Samaje, who's having a quietly good season, that's the strength of this offense, and they need to stick with it for 4 quarters.
What is the perception of how the Broncos match up with the Chiefs going into the second meeting, especially because the first game is so fresh in everyone's mind because it was so recent? It was 2 Thursdays ago that these two teams played, and the Broncos defense performed better, well above, I think, everybody's expectations, but still lost that game 19-8. We're never really in it in that game at Arrowhead Stadium. So what is the perception going into this second meeting of how Denver matches up and what they're going to have to do to try and beat the Chiefs for the first time since President Obama's second term?
Yeah. Oh, everyone knows about the 16-game losing streak, that's for sure, and how close they're getting to history to being tied for the longest losing streak to one team, which is set at 20 games. So everyone's very aware of that. And the funny thing is, you're right about that first game with the Broncos where they were really never in it, yet you look and you're like, oh, Broncos only lost by 11 points. And what's funny is I feel like people kind of view that as certainly not a win, but like, okay, we can kind of hang with the Chiefs in Broncos country. And they didn't even cover a 10.5-point spread, which was what the spread was, which is just wild that it's such a big spread in Broncos country is like, okay, we can kind of hang with them. Now the spread's 7. And the way I feel personally is crazy low. I think that this is a Kansas City Chiefs team that they really took the Broncos lightly the first time around. We saw how many trick plays they tried to do and kind of tried to disrespect the Broncos just at the very start of the game with doing the little toss from Kelsey after he caught that ball to Noah Gray. That was disrespectful, and they did so many other little trick plays that I don't think the Chiefs would do if they were playing a team that they had respect for and were competitive for. So the way I see this game playing out is I don't think Andy Reid's going to try to be cute and try to embarrass the Broncos by doing trick plays. I think they're going to try to embarrass the Broncos by absolutely destroying them. So that's what I'm afraid of from the Broncos' perspective, is that the Chiefs are going to have a different mindset here. And typically, the Broncos play the Chiefs close once per year in these past 7 years during this losing streak, and then they blow the Broncos out once. And it doesn't really matter if the game's in Kansas City or Denver. So I fear for Broncos that that's what's coming this week is a blowout from the Chiefs.
Last thing I want to ask you, if the Chiefs beat the Broncos coming up, then you got the bye week. When is it going to be a little bit of kind of apathy and kind of, oh, well, the season's over and the Denver crowd doesn't really care a whole lot? Is there a worry of that if a couple more losses end up happening and the last few home games, it's not quite there enthusiasm-wise? Is that a concern?
Unfortunately, I think it's kind of already kicked in with this slow start, especially last year when the Broncos got Russell Wilson. This town has not been this excited since Peyton Manning was here because that's all the Broncos needed. They were a quarterback away. That's what everyone thought, including myself. So they got Russ, and the expectations were through the roof, and that's what made last year just maybe the most disappointing season in Broncos history. So this year, the Broncos get Sean Payton. People were thinking, okay, maybe now this year we're only a Sean Payton, good head coach away from competing. But people remembered last year. So people had some guarded optimism about where the Broncos were going to be this year. And then it just started really poor. And that 0-3 start was really tough for the Broncos. And people started just reverting back to last year and said, this is just the same Broncos. So I actually think that people are at that apathy stage here. And if they beat the Chiefs, people will be guarded back. So they'll have guarded optimism again, but people understand how big of a task it is to beat the Chiefs. But if they do, they have a bye week and there's going to be hope again. But right now, that apathy, unfortunately, has already set in, not just because of this year, but because of recent history of the Broncos too.
Zach, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the game, and hopefully it doesn't snow too much this weekend for you.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it could be up to 9 inches heading into the game, so that might affect it. But Patrick Mahomes is he doesn't get affected by weather, so I think any weather or inclement, I think that helps. I think that helps the Chiefs.
Zach, we appreciate the time, my friend.
Right on. Thanks for having me, guys.
That is Zach Stevens, covers the Broncos for DNVR, part of the All City Network. Coming up in the final hour of 580 Sports Talk, we will chat with Will Howard, K-State quarterback, and KU defensive back Kenny Logan, and we'll start the hours we always do with headlines. That's all coming up. Stay with us on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final hour of the day, final hour of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. I am Dan Lucero, flying solo, but don't worry, I'll have a little help from my friends here in this final hour of the program. Chock full of good stuff, so glad you're hanging out with us here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, or if you're checking out the YouTube stream. If you're hanging out in the YouTube, hi, gang. If you're not in the YouTube, get the YouTube stream. It's a great way to enjoy the program and watch our mouths move while we say the words that you enjoy hearing us say. You can find us on YouTube by searching for 580 Sports Talk, or type in youtube.com/@ 580 Sports Talk. They'll take you right to our page. If you are not subscribed yet, you should totally do so. And then we'll put our videos right at the top of your page every time you go to youtube.com. And you can click on those links, enjoy the live show, participate in the live chat, and also enjoy archived shows and video content as well. That's youtube.com/@ 580 Sports Talk. In the live chat's a great way to be part of the show here in this final hour. Also encourage you to text the program, 785-272-9429. What's your read on the games this weekend? I want to know. Who do you think is going to win? Score predictions? Chiefs Broncos on Sunday. Homecoming games for KU and K-State tomorrow. KU, of course, taking on Oklahoma, and K-State battling Houston for the first time ever, wouldn't you know it? They've never played football before tomorrow. So get your predictions in. Want to hear those. Again, YouTube comments, great place for them. Also, the text line, 785-272-9429. So we have a jam-packed final hour. Earlier this week, we had a chance to have conversations with Will Howard, starting quarterback for the Kansas State Wildcats, and Kenny Logan, one of the heart and soul players in that KU secondary at his safety position. Well, we know you'll enjoy both of those conversations. We'll play them for you here this hour. We'll play Howard first, coming up after our headline segment, and then we'll play Kenny Logan. We'll talk a little bit about some high school playoff football going on tonight. We'll get some final thoughts on KU, K-State, and the Chiefs. And, of course, my prediction for this Saturday's DePaul Tiger football game as well, in case you missed it. Stirring 14-point comeback in the fourth quarter by my alma mater as DePaul beat Wittenberg 41-35 in overtime last week. We'll have your weekly DePaul Tiger update coming up here in a little while. But first, as always, we got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, and we begin with news and notes from the Kansas City Chiefs. Their injury report is out for Sunday's game in Denver. Only one player has an injury designation. Unsurprisingly, that is Nick Bolton. He did not practice all week. He just had surgery on a dislocated wrist. Of course, he didn't practice all week. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. He's not going to play. He's listed as out. Everybody else who had been on the list, and it's not a long list, everybody else was a full participant in practice today and is full steam ahead for Sunday. That includes Mike Edwards, Jerick McKinnon, Harrison Butker, and Justin Watson. 2 weeks removed from that dislocated elbow, he's going to play on Sunday. And the reason that we know he's going to dress and play, number one, Andy Reid said so. Number two, there's a roster spot open because earlier today, Chiefs wide receiver Justin Ross was placed on the commissioner's exempt list. Now, we have been bringing you the story all week that Ross was arrested on Monday in Shawnee, Kansas, after what is alleged to be a domestic dispute. He was arrested on charges of domestic battery with no priors and criminal damage to property of less than $1,000. So while the investigation is ongoing, the NFL has intervened and placed Ross on the commissioner's exempt list. He may not practice or play, but he does continue to get paid. So I don't think he counts on the 53-man roster if he's on the exempt list. I'm going to double check that, make sure I'm not lying to you good people. But he can't practice and he can't play. So with Justin Watson having been out, obviously he was on the 53-man roster and was just not active for the last couple of games. But he is back on the 53. So the commissioner's exempt list doesn't allow you to practice or play, and I don't know if you count against the 53. I think that you do, but I could be wrong. So it's a common move that the NFL does it's surprising how quickly they've done it in this instance, that they've placed Ross on the commissioner's exempt list this quickly. A lot of times, this is almost a last resort kind of thing. And a lot of times, and I don't say this to diminish what Ross is accused of, but a lot of times the exempt list is used when the accusations are a little heavier. Like, these are 2 misdemeanor charges. Sometimes when you see a player dealing with a felony charge, they get placed on the exempt list right away. So it's a little surprising that it has happened so quickly. And I have confirmed the player does not count against the 53-man active roster limit. So the Chiefs can elevate, they can do a practice squad elevation. Maybe Montreal Washington is the practice squad elevation, or maybe they elevated a different position for Sunday, but Ross does not count against the 53. So that's your injury report and personnel report for the Chiefs. The Broncos also come into Sunday pretty healthy. The only player with a designation for them is Brandon Johnson. He's a reserve wide receiver. He practiced in full on Wednesday, wasn't even on the injury report, but then was limited Thursday and didn't practice today. He's dealing with a hamstring. Sean Payton says he'll be a game time decision. Everybody else listed for the Broncos practiced in full. Running back Dwayne Washington, tackle Garrett Bowles, outside linebacker Baron Browning, and safety Justin Simmons. Broncos, of course, will be without safety Kareem Jackson, who is serving a 2-game suspension for repeated flagrantly dirty hits that have been penalized through the first handful of weeks of this season. We told you about the suspension earlier in the week. It's a 2-game suspension, but it was originally a 4-game suspension. It was reduced on appeal to 2 games. So Simmons will play. That's one half of the starting safety duo for the Broncos, but the other half will not play. Baron Browning did not play in the first meeting between these 2 teams 2 weeks ago. He's the one guy for Denver that I think having him makes a difference, because I think he's a talented pass rusher. He can rush with speed, and I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a little bit of an impact on Sunday for that Bronco defense. They need all the help they can get. They don't have superstar pass rushers, but in Nick Bonito and Baron Browning, they got a couple of young guys. Jonathan Cooper's another one who they'll pin their ears back and they'll try and get up the field and try and be disruptive. So it will be incumbent upon Juwan Taylor and Donovan Smith to be on their P's and Q's against those 3 Denver pass rushers. Again, not superstars by any stretch of the imagination, but capable. I would say capable and athletic pass rush talents for the Broncos. And again, Browning didn't play in the first meeting. So that's the injury report for Chiefs Broncos. What about around the league? I'm glad you asked. We do this every week on the Friday headlines. Take a look at the injury reports from around the league. We'll start with the noon kickoffs, noon Central Time kickoffs. Saints at Colts. Saints will be without starting tackle James Hurst. He's out with an ankle injury. They got a whole bunch of guys listed as questionable. Starting guard Max Garcia, linebacker Demario Davis, tight end Juwan Johnson, safeties Tyrann Mathieu and Marcus May. That's both of their starting safeties. Jimmy Graham and Taysom Hill also listed as questionable. The Colts will once again be without tackle Braden Smith, who continues to miss time with multiple injuries. Tight end Kylan Granson and former K-Stater Julius Brents at cornerback also listed as out. Colts, of course, earlier this week put Anthony Richardson on injured reserve, so it will be Gardner Minshew starting at quarterback. Patriots, Dolphins. Dolphins have like half their roster listed as questionable, but the anticipation is most of these guys are going to play, and that includes Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, and Tyreek Hill. So they're 3 most important skill guys other than their quarterback. All listed as questionable, but all expected to play. Little less certain for Jalen Ramsey. I don't know if you saw this on social media last night, where Adam Schefter of ESPN reported that the Dolphins were expecting that Ramsey would play. His 21-day window is open off the injured reserve. He had returned to practice, and Schefter tweeted that the Dolphins were expecting Ramsey to make his return and make his Dolphins debut on Sunday, which was news to Jalen Ramsey. And the reason we know this is because Jalen Ramsey tweeted, "That's news to me." So not sure if Ramsey's going to play or not, but he, like, again, half the Dolphins are listed as questionable. Only one player listed as out for the Patriots. Tackle Calvin Anderson has been ill and has not practiced all week, so he is out. They got a bunch of guys that are questionable as well. Jonathan Jones, Christian Barmore, and Josh Uche, the most notable of those names, all on defense. Jets-Giants, Battle of the Meadowlands. Giants are once again going to be without Daniel Jones, and when the Giants head coach Brian Daboll spoke earlier today, it was the first time all week that he'd given any indication that this might be a longer-term injury for Jones than initially thought. This will be the third straight game that Jones misses, and now they are not willing to commit to the idea that he'll be back at all, which is obviously disappointing for Daniel Jones. But on the bright side for the Giants, they have looked better with Tyrod Taylor quarterback. They almost beat the Bills, and they did beat the Commanders. And it's not that the offense has played great, but it's not a high bar to clear if the guy starting ahead of you is Daniel Jones. Tyrod Taylor is a capable backup, so I don't know that they miss a beat. The Giants will also be without Gary Brightwell, running back. Tackle Andrew Thomas getting closer to return, but he is doubtful. Tackle Evan Neal, center John Michael Schmitz questionable, Kayvon Thibodeau questionable, Darren Waller questionable for the Giants. Jets have ruled out center Joe Tippmann, and wide receiver Irvin Charles is doubtful, but not much in the way of injury doubts that are really important for the Jets. Eagles, Commanders. Once again, Bradley Roby will not play for the Eagles. The cornerback is out with a shoulder injury. Jordan Davis is questionable. Otherwise, the Eagles are pretty healthy. Commanders will be without linebacker Cody Barton and guard Sadiq Charles. Curtis Samuel is questionable. Vikings, Packers at Lambeau. Pretty clean injury reports for both teams. Vikings will be without rotational linebacker Brian Asamoah. Packers list Jair Alexander, Devondre Campbell, and Luke Musgrave, their tight end, all as questionable. Alexander and Campbell would be two big losses for the defense if they can't go. Texans, Panthers. Panthers coming off a bye will be without safety Von Bell, out with a quad, and wide receiver Laviska Shenault out with an ankle injury. Star linebacker Frankie Louvu and stud pass rusher Brian Burns, both listed as questionable for the Panthers. Texans have ruled out defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins and wide receiver Robert Woods. For the Rams and the Cowboys, Cowboys only have two players listed on their injury list. Tyron Smith, their outstanding starting tackle, listed as questionable with a neck injury. Rams have ruled out tight end Hunter Long. If that's not a name you know, you're not really alone there. Rotational tight end. They've got a couple of other guys questionable, most notably tackle Rob Havenstein with a calf injury. For the Falcons and the Titans, Falcons only have one player with a designation, rotational linebacker Tay Davis. He's out with a concussion. Titans have ruled out Ryan Tannehill. He will not play, an ankle injury. Will Levis is preparing to make his first NFL start. Also, some whispers that Malik Willis may also play. So there's a chance the Titans may roll two quarterbacks out there against the Falcons. That could also just be a smokescreen, and it might be entirely the Will Levis show. But that's the biggest absence for the Titans. Jaguars and Steelers in Pittsburgh. No Zay Jones for the Jaguars. He will miss with a knee injury. Trevor Lawrence listed as questionable. Remember, he's dealing with a knee injury, though he did play last Thursday after he suffered that injury the Sunday prior. So would be a little surprised if Trevor Lawrence can't go. Pair of corners for the Steelers are questionable. Joey Porter Jr. and Levi Wallace. Browns and Seahawks. Browns have ruled their starting quarterback out. That's Deshaun Watson. Continues to deal with the right shoulder injury. P.J. Walker will once again get the start under center for the 4-2 Browns. Starting running back Jerome Ford, questionable with an ankle. Starting tackle Jedrick Willis, questionable. Linebacker Sione Takitaki, questionable with a hamstring injury. Seahawks will be without just two players, and neither of them are of any real importance. Guard Phil Haynes is doubtful with a calf injury. Tyler Lockett and Jamal Adams both listed as questionable. Lockett dealing with a hamstring, didn't practice today, and he is questionable. But good news for the Seahawks. After missing the first game of his career last week, DK Metcalf has no designation. Seahawks held a lot of guys out of practice today for vet rest, including Bobby Wagner, Kenneth Walker III, and Jerron Reed. Also are going to be without Uchenna Nwosu for the rest of the season. He's listed on the participation list, but he's going to go on IR. Frank Clark expected to make his Seahawks debut on Sunday. He'll be wearing number 57 instead of his usual number 55. And instead of Clark on the back of his jersey, it will be Clark Sr. on the back of his Seahawks jersey. For the Bengals and the 49ers, Niners getting good news about Brock Purdy. He would be the first player this year to come out of concussion protocol and play in the same week. That hasn't happened yet this year. But despite being in concussion protocol, Purdy was able to practice on a limited basis today, and they are moving towards being able to play him on Sunday. If everything progresses well, Purdy will go. He will not have Deebo Samuel available, still out with a shoulder injury. Trent Williams didn't practice, but he is listed as questionable with an ankle, and the 49ers could certainly use their star left tackle back. Bengals be without linebacker Akeem Davis-Gaither. He's out with a knee injury. For Ravens and Cardinals, pump the brakes on a return for Kyler Murray. He's back at practice, practiced in full today, but listed as doubtful with that knee injury as he continues to recover from the ACL. So not likely yet that he'll make his 2023 debut. Ravens ruling out safety Marcus Williams again with a hamstring injury. And lastly, the Sunday night game, Bears-Chargers. I can't believe this is a Sunday night game. No Justin Fields for the Bears. Still missed his second straight game with a right thumb injury. That means Tyson Bagent will get his second straight start at quarterback. Whole bunch of guys questionable for the Chargers. Austin Eckler, noteworthy, not one of them. Joey Bosa, not on the injury report this week. Josh Palmer is questionable. So is safety Alohi Gilman. And tight end Gerald Everett, who came out of Sunday's game against the Chiefs, questionable with a hip injury. So that is your injury report. All the injuries that are fit to discuss here on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. A couple of other things I want to get to real quick. Number one, the World Series opens tonight. I've been vocal that I do not think this is a particularly compelling World Series because the participants in the World Series themselves are not particularly compelling. I had 162 games tell me that the Diamondbacks were mediocre. I'm not wavering from my stance that that's an average baseball team, even though they've had 12 very good games here in October. Just how average is this World Championship matchup? The Rangers were just a 90-win team in the regular season, though at least they could blame injuries. The two teams combined for a .537 winning percentage in the regular season. This from OptaStats. That is the lowest winning percentage or points percentage by the teams reaching the championship round in any of the four major sports since 1991, when the 7-seed Minnesota North Stars rode a red-hot goaltender named John Casey all the way to the Stanley Cup final, where they were summarily boat raced by Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins were good, but the North Stars were so lousy in the regular season that year. The points percentage of that matchup combined, .488. You combine the two teams, and they were below 500, or averaging less than a point per game. .537 combined winning percentage between the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. And I am not saying that, don't watch this World Series. It's going to be dumb. It's going to be bad. It might be very compelling. It's two hot teams at the very least, two teams playing very well, and that should provide some measure of entertainment. I'm just saying it's not first screen caliber for me. It's second screen. It's alternate channel. It's maybe I'll check it out if it's a one-run game in the seventh inning. But it's not going to be hold all my calls. I'm watching the World Series. Braves Astros would have been. Phillies Astros would have been. Dodgers Astros would have been. And to be fair to the Rangers, who had the same record as the Astros, I'd be psyched to see them against any of the actual good teams from the National League. But those actual good teams had some problems and couldn't get it done in October. So here we are. The Rangers looking for their first ever title. The Diamondbacks looking for their first since 2001. Man, it's the Diamondbacks are in the World Series. Blink-182 dropped a new album. There's horrible conflict and bloodshed in the Middle East. It is 2001 all over again, isn't it? Starting pitchers tonight, Zach Gallen for Arizona, and the Rangers going with their big game man, right-hander, Nathan Eovaldi. First pitch, 7:03 Central Time tonight. And one final note. The NIT, the National Invitational Tournament, basketball tournament's been around for a very, very long time. Been around longer than the NCAA tournament. They are making some big changes. They are going to stop offering automatic bids for teams that win their conference regular season but lose in the conference tournament and are not selected to the NCAA tournament. Instead, they're going to give 12 auto bids from top 2 NET ranked teams, net ranking teams from the Power 6 conferences that don't go to the tournament. So the 2 best teams from each of the Power 6 leagues that miss the bubble and don't get the NCAA tournament, those are your automatic bids into the NIT. Because that's what we're dying to watch, right? Like 17-14 Oklahoma. They're going to get automatic bid into the NIT. And then 20 at-large bids from there. As Chris Vanini writes on Twitter, Chris Vanini covers college sports for The Athletic. If your reaction to this NIT change is the slippery slope of guaranteeing more power conference access in other NCAA championships and less access for the mid-majors, well, you're not alone. I know most people don't make a lot of time for the NIT as it is, but the NIT Final Four this last year was actually kind of interesting because it was mid-major teams that lost in their conference tournaments. North Texas, led by, of course, now K-State Wildcat Tyler Perry, UAB, Utah Valley, and Wisconsin. That was the NIT Final Four. 3 teams from mid-major conferences. Utah Valley, not even really, I wouldn't even call their conference the WAC a mid-major. And so the reaction to that is, well, we got to get more of the Power 6 schools in. We got to get more name brands in our second-tier postseason basketball tournament. If you think that sucks, you're not alone. You are very, very much not alone in that. And it does, I think, set a really bad precedent of where we're going to go from here as far as locking out the little guy and making sure the big brands have more access to the TV time and the prestige of even a second-tier postseason tournament. Those are your 580 Sports Talk headlines. We're going to step aside for a break. When we come back, earlier this week, Brendan and I got to talk to Will Howard, starting quarterback for the Kansas State Wildcats. We're going to play that conversation for you on 580 Sports Talk.
On 580 Sports Talk, Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you this afternoon. Coming up this weekend, we've got more Kansas State football coming your way here on the airwaves of your home for Wildcat Athletics, 580 WIBW. And as we look ahead and look back a little bit on K-State football, we welcome in the Wildcat starting quarterback, Will Howard, here to the program. Will, the first thing I've got for you is, do you just take a specific amount of pleasure in beating the TCU Horned Frogs? Because a couple of big moments in your career, both this past weekend and last December down at Jerry World, have come in wins over TCU.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's always good to beat those guys. It was my our first career start, we beat them, and obviously won the Big 12 last year against them, and then this one was a huge one that we got. It's great to get a win every week, but I do especially love beating those guys.
Even beyond your individual performance, and it was a stellar one on Saturday in that 41-3 drubbing of the Horned Frogs, how good does it feel for you, and how good does it feel for this entire roster to get a win that is as dominant as you guys were this weekend?
Yeah, it was big time, and it was dominant in all phases. That was the great thing about it. I feel like we're making really, really good strides in all phases. In offense, defense, and special teams. I think we're doing really, really good things right now, and a lot of people want to look at TCU and say, what did they do wrong? What went wrong for them? But I think, a lot of what factored into that game was, what did we do right? And I think we just played a really good game all around. And when you're able to do that, good things happen. So it was really good. It's a really good confidence booster for this team.
For you as an individual, you put up some fantastic numbers in the game. You looked sharp throwing the ball. We're moving it well with your legs as well. What felt good for you in particular about that performance after the fact, but also going into that? Did it just feel like a game that was going to click well for you?
Yeah, obviously, given the circumstances, I just had to, take advantage of every opportunity that I had and go out there and do what I can when I had the chance. And I feel like I did a really good job of that, and I think our game plan was pretty solid, and I think we executed it really well. So at the end of the day, it was just another game, but we did our job, and we came out firing, and they really couldn't keep up with what we had.
Our guest is Will Howard, the senior starting quarterback for the Kansas State Wildcats, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk, coming off of the 41-3 victory on Saturday against TCU and looking ahead to Saturday's homecoming contest against the Houston Cougars. Will, you played extremely well on Saturday. So too did the freshman Avery Johnson when he had the opportunity. I want to know this. When was the plan hatched to have you both start and have you hand off on a jet sweep to Avery Johnson on the first play of the game? It felt, at least as an observer, like kind of an interesting way to address the, who's going to start this week sort of controversy. When was that idea? Who came up with that idea, and how did that develop?
Yeah, I think it was just Coach Klein's idea, and they told us Friday morning, I think, that was the plan, and didn't really change anything for us. It was just, I don't really know what the thought process behind it was, but it was good. It was, it was a top play, so we'll take it.
What is your relationship with Avery Johnson like as you are in a senior leadership role, the starting quarterback in that room, and a leader and a captain on this team, and trying to help to develop a player who obviously has a bright future at Kansas State? It looks like you guys on the sidelines are interacting, trading notes with each other as the game goes on. What is that relationship, that dynamic like between you two?
No, it's really good. He's a really good kid, and he's got his head in the right place, and wants to learn, and is really motivated, and that's really good, and really easy to work with guy. So it's been really good. It's worked out, and I just want to give him as much knowledge as I can, because the guys that came before me did the same for me. So that's I just want to continue to pass it down the line, and control the controllables, and continue to hopefully have success.
Your wide receiver group has dealt with some injuries, unfortunately, this year. You've had some guys be in and out of the lineup over the course of weeks, over the course of even during games, but it's given an opportunity for some other guys to have chances to contribute. And I want to ask about one in particular, Will Swanson at tight end, catching his first career touchdown on Saturday, and a play that, to hear Coach Kleiman after the game tell it, he was going to be a little upset if you underthrew that ball and you didn't give Will a chance to haul that in. So take me through Swanson's touchdown and what that means to see somebody like him get his first.
Oh yeah, believe me, I was going to be devastated if I had underthrown that one. He's my guy, man. Me and Swanee, we came in together in COVID, and he's been my roommate since I've been here. So we're really tight, and to see him, have that success and have his first touchdown pass, he made me right on that play. I almost screwed him over, but he made a heck of a play, and shout out to him. I feel like his first touchdown, that was just the most Will Swanson first touchdown I've ever seen. So it was on brand. It was good stuff. But I was so happy for him, because he's a guy that doesn't get near enough credit for all the work that he puts in and all the good things that he does. He's more of a blocking tight end first, but to see him step up in that game and in that moment and have I was so excited to see that for him.
We're chatting with Will Howard, starting quarterback for the Kansas State Wildcats here on 580 Sports Talk. K-State will take on Houston for its homecoming game coming up this weekend, a game that you can hear, like all K-State games, in your home for Wildcat Athletics, 580 WIBW, with the whole Wildcat crew, Wyatt, Stan, and everybody on the call of that one on Saturday. You mentioned, Will, the guys who bestowed their knowledge upon you when you first started, and now you being in that role now. How have you felt yourself as a player and as a person grow and develop from when you first came in and you were Skylar Thompson's understudy to where you are now and essentially having an understudy of your own? How have you felt yourself develop both on and off the field in this time frame?
I think the things that I've had to go through here at K-State and continue to have to go through, have turned me into a man and into the person that I am today. And a lot of that, I feel like is, obviously I was, those guys were good mentors for me and taught me some things, but I feel like a lot of it I kind of had to figure out on my own. And, it kind of all the tough things that I've been dealt here and haven't really been given a lot of help. I feel like that's kind of turned me into more of an individual and made me who I am. And it's strengthened me. And, this place has shaped me into being, being a man. And I think, I'll be eternally grateful for that, even though it hasn't always been all sunshine and rainbows. I think that, the circumstances that I've been through, have taught me the most.
Your offensive coordinator, Colin Klein, was obviously a phenomenal quarterback in his own right. He knows what it takes to win at Kansas State, and he's had a great start to his career as a play caller and as an offensive coordinator. What is it like working with him day to day and during game situations? What is Colin Klein like, and what is your relationship like with your play caller?
Yeah, Coach Klein and I, we've been together since I've gotten here, and we've gotten to know each other pretty well, obviously. He's a quiet guy. He doesn't say a lot. He's all about business. He does, everything that he does. I feel like every conversation I have with him is about football. That's kind of how he's wired. But yeah, it's great to work with him because he's been out there. He gets it for the most part. So yeah, he's a really good coach, and I think he's got a bright future in play calling.
Looking ahead to this weekend's game against Houston, Will, what do you know about this Cougars defense you'll be facing coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I know they got a lot of good players, and we're studying them up right now and trying to find their tendencies and do all that stuff. So I'm sure at the end of it we'll have a good game plan and know what they're going to want to do. And they played Texas a little differently last week, so we'll have to take that into account. But I think our study's off to a good start, and we'll figure it out as we go.
All right, Will, we've got a couple quick ones here, and we'll let you go. And again, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us today. Number one, if we are ever out on the East Coast, we're driving through southeastern Pennsylvania, we come across a town called Downingtown, your hometown. What is the one thing you've got to do if you're in town? Whether you're going back and doing something, you're telling someone else what to do when they're there. What do you have to do? What do you have to see in your hometown?
Man, that's a tough one. If you're going to Downingtown, I would say you got to stop at a Wawa. I don't know if anyone knows out here what a Wawa is. It's like a quick trip, but 30 times better, I would say. It's like a really, really good gas station. I always tell all my boys from out here that don't know about it to get on the hype train, because Wawa is legit. It's the best.
Does anybody get more excited about convenience stores than Pennsylvanians between Wawa and Sheetz and all those other options.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's big time out there. The Wawa Sheets debate is a hot topic always. My sister goes to Penn State, so they're always talking about that up there.
Since you are from not all that far from Philadelphia, are you an Eagles fan?
I am.
Did that cause any problems on campus, say, I don't know, February of this past year?
Yeah, I will say I was watching the game with a bunch of my buddies who may or may not have been Chiefs fans, and I was talking a lot of smack. So when the game was over, I was over, and so if I had to lose anybody, of course, I don't mind it being the Chiefs. Like, the Chiefs are okay. I'm cool with them. I don't have anything really, any vendettas against them. Obviously now maybe I do a little bit. Yeah, it was fun. That was a fun game.
Growing up, who was your favorite Eagle?
Oh, Donovan McNabb for sure. He was my guy growing up.
That's a good one. I have a feeling there are a lot of guys your age, Will, who probably were big Donovan McNabb fans growing up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I remember. I had a little number 5 Kelly Green jersey. That was my thing.
Love that. All right, last thing I've got for you, Will. We ask all your teammates this when they hop on with us as well. Right as you guys are about to take the field, you're finishing up warm-ups, you've got to hear one song in your headphones to make sure you are as hyped up, as energized as can be. What's that last song you've got to hear before a game starts?
Ooh, man, that is a tough one. It always changes for me week to week, honestly. But whenever me being a Philly guy, whenever I hear "Dreams and Nightmares," I'm telling you that by Meek Mill, that gets me going.
That's a perfect. I think that one, Philly or not, is always at the top of the list. Will Howard is the starting quarterback for the Kansas State Wildcats. K-State will be in action coming up against Houston on Saturday in Manhattan. Will, thank you for taking the time for us, man. We really appreciate it. Best of luck to you guys coming up for homecoming on Saturday and the rest of the way.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
That's Will Howard, and when we come back, we're going to hear from KU safety Kenny Logan here on 580 Sports Talk. To 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Jake in studio with you at the moment as we gear up for some KU football coming up this weekend. In fact, big noon Saturday coming up this weekend in Lawrence as the Kansas Jayhawks take on the Oklahoma Sooners, and we welcome in to talk all about this game and all things Jayhawks, senior safety Kenny Logan of KU, a mainstay on this defense for many years at this point. Kenny, thank you for taking the time for us. First thing I've got for you, though, you guys got the bye this past week, a little bit of time off. What did you do to keep yourself busy during the bye week?
I mean, we just really tried to focus on the little things, get back to doing the details, clean up on all the stuff that we've been kind of having some miscues on throughout the year, and just kind of get back to doing us and get some people fresh again.
At this time of year, we're already halfway through the regular season for you guys and still so many goals, so many accomplishments still on the table. Are you in full everything is all business mode right now, or are you still trying to take a little time to, get some time to yourself, just relax a little bit, or is it all business all the time now till the end of the year?
Oh no, it's definitely all business all the time. I mean, you try to squeeze some self time in there here and there, but really it's just all business right now. We're trying to focus and get to where we want to go and accomplish the things we want to accomplish.
Obviously, you are a major part of this team on defense and special teams too, and you've been that way for your entire career at this point, and you're one of the elder statesmen on this roster. So from that veteran leader perspective, how would you assess the way you guys have played so far through the first half of the season?
I mean, pretty good. Came up short a couple times in some games, but we saw that we compete with the best of the teams. A lot of things that we can also clean up on just to help finish this season out strong. But I'm definitely proud of where we came and what we're doing so far.
When you look at a game like Oklahoma State a couple of weeks back, and you guys were so close in that one and came up just a little bit short on the road, tough environment, it's an understandable game that a road team might lose. But for you as a defense and really from a whole team perspective, does it feel like you guys are close, like just one or two things cleaned up and you'll be able to take things to the next level?
Oh, definitely. I don't feel like we're that far off. It's a few things here and there that you clean up or tighten up on, or just a communication that you can say, and then we'll be right there. So you always try to find ways to close that gap and continue to grow as a team.
We're talking with Kenny Logan, the senior safety for the Kansas Jayhawks. Kenny, you're a big hitting safety. How do you go about making sure that you do it the right way and so you don't get called for targeting? As someone who likes to hit people, is there something that you try to focus on? Is there something that the coaches teach you? Is it too much reaction and there's not a lot of control you have over it? How do you make sure that you're doing it the right way playing the safety position? Because to me, it's almost impossible to do at the speeds at which you guys play.
I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. I don't even really try to think about it too much, because that's when things like that happen. I just try to go out there and do the best I can with tackling. Our coaches teach us the proper technique in tackling. Instead of just throwing your body out there trying to go for the big hit all the time, it's all right. It's all right to just get a guy on the ground. So I've been trying to really focus on that. I don't really think about if I'm going to get called for targeting for this. I mean, I just go out there and play, and sadly, if it happens, it happens. But I try to play with the proper technique and approach every tackle the right way.
Speaking of tackling, you don't really get to practice tackling a whole lot because no one does it live during practice anymore. Is it harder to improve tackling now as opposed to back when live practices would be happening more frequently?
I mean, I would say if you can tackle, you can tackle. I mean, it's a want to tackle, it's a want to be physical. So if you have those intangibles, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory for you. I mean, the most you do now is tackling a dummy or something like that. So it's just about how you approach that really into your practice format of how you approach the tackling a dummy if you're shutting your feet down too early and stuff like that. So we just try to make sure we're doing everything in our power to do the little things in practice. So when we get in the game mode, it's kind of similar.
Alrighty, give me a scouting report of the Oklahoma Sooner offense. What do they do what do they do well?
I mean, they do a lot of things well. They have a great coach. They have a great guys on offense, a great quarterback. So you just got to make sure that you're getting lined up and doing everything you can, just communicating at a high level. I mean, every team in this conference is going to challenge you. So you just got to make sure week in and week out you're doing everything in your power and you're on your P's and Q's to go have a great game.
We're chatting with KU senior safety Kenny Logan here on 580 Sports Talk as Kansas gears up to take on Oklahoma in a massive Big 12 contest coming up, 11 o'clock kickoff on Saturday in Lawrence. Kenny, I wanted to ask you about some of the guys around you on this defense. Let's start in the secondary. You have obviously had a star-studded career in your own right, but getting to play with a guy like Kobe Bryant or Marvin Grant, who transferred in a year ago, Romello Dotson has had an awesome season so far for you guys. What is it like working alongside them day after day, week after week? And what do you think you've improved on by playing alongside those guys?
I mean, just being able to have two corners out there like that can really shut down the side of a field or just make plays when you need them to is always exciting because, you can kind of lean to a different side or lean a different way. I because you don't really have to lean on those guys. And then just playing with a guy like Marv, he's going to come and hit you. He's going to make plays every day. And then also you can't forget about O.J. Burrows. He makes plays on the ball. He's a ball hawk and safety, comes out the middle of the field, make great tackles. So just being able to play with those guys, you kind of pick up different skill sets and different things you can add in your bag when you're approaching the game.
Going into this season, I know there was a lot of outside noise around your program that, hey, we're a little bit concerned about what that defensive lines look like. Is that KU front going to be good enough to go up against some of these offensive lines in the Big 12? And those guys up front, Kenny, they have been fantastic this year. Obviously, the new additions, Austin Booker's had a great year. Devin Phillips has been sensational. Jeremy Robinson back this year. He's your sack leader for the season. What have you thought about those guys who are playing up in front of you and the way they've taken that next step this year?
I mean, for defense as a whole, I feel like we're still trying to build, but we're doing everything in our power to focus on the little things inside our house. I mean, we know we heard the whispers, we heard the words of everybody else, but I mean, we kind of took that as fuel. Those guys up front are playing their butts off right now, and all we can do is try to continue to help those guys in secondary when we're holding guys and we're covering them so they can get home and make the plays we need.
You've played for a number of position coaches and defensive coordinators now in your time at KU, and you've been through a lot, Kenny, and you've gotten to see a lot as well. What is it like playing for Brian Borland? He's been in the game for so long. He's been with Coach Leipold for so long. What is he like as a defensive coordinator, and what's the day-to-day like working with him?
I mean, as a coordinator, he's gonna dial up and do different things that challenges teams in various ways, and then I mean, he's my position coach, so I get to mess with him and get to reel him every day. Sometimes I joke with him all the time about little things here and there, just mess with him when we're on the field. But Coach Boylan's a great guy, a great DC, so I'm happy to have him.
You mentioned practice. You guys practice in the mornings. So what time do you have to get up, and do you like practice in the mornings as opposed to practicing in the middle of the afternoon like the majority of schools?
I mean, we could probably get up about like 5-something.
No, man, I can't. You're tougher than me, Kenny. I could not do that.
So do you like it, though? Do you like the early practices and you're done by, 9:30, 10 o'clock?
I mean, at first I didn't, but you get used to it. You get your body going quicker. You get your day rolling. You can kind of get your day over with. You have time to kind of have downtime and relax. So I definitely like it. I mean, you don't have really much of a choice, though. So you either going to do it or you're going to go home. So I'm pretty fine with doing it and making the best of it. So, but getting that little downtime in the afternoon so where you can come back, do some film, get some treatment. I mean, I feel like Coach set up a great schedule for us.
All right, last couple of things we've got for you, Kenny. And again, thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Number one, you've gotten to play, aside from the new schools in the Big 12, you've gotten to play against all of these other teams in the conference so far. What is your favorite road trip, your favorite environment, favorite city to go visit when you guys are on the road?
With the new schools or just in general?
Just in general. I know you guys haven't gotten to go see all the new ones yet. So just over your career, what's been your favorite one to go visit?
Probably Oklahoma State or Texas.
Those are both loud, crazy environments.
Yeah,
and I know
yeah.
A little bit earlier this season, we talked to Luke Grimm, and he said, hey, I want to go places where it's loud, where people aren't nice to us. I want it to be aggressive like that. Do you feel kind of the same way when you're on the road?
Yeah, I feed off energy. I feed off the crowd. I feed off talking. So I kind of enjoy it. I laugh a lot when it happens because, the fans going to yell crazy stuff at you. But I thrive in those environments.
All right, last thing I've got for you then, Kenny. We ask all your teammates this when they hop on with us as well. When you are getting ready for the game, you're just about to run out of the tunnel, end of the playlist, what is the one song you've got to hear, the one song you've got to have in your headphones before you take the field?
I ain't gonna lie, it gotta be two. I'm gonna listen to Mr. Carter by Lil Wayne, then I'm gonna throw on like a Billie Eilish to kind of calm me down and keep me level headed before I go out.
All right, this is a big day for us because my partner here, Jake, knows nothing about the rap game these days. Absolutely nothing. So mentioning Lil Wayne has him all fired up right here next to me. I think that's his favorite answer we've heard all year.
Yes, sir.
Kenny Logan is a standout senior safety for the Kansas Jayhawks. KU will take on Oklahoma coming up at 11 o'clock this Saturday in Lawrence. Kenny, thank you so much, man, for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Best of luck coming up against OU this weekend, and best of luck the rest of the way.
All right, thank you.
That is Kenny Logan. We're going to take a quick break, come back with a final word on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Our thanks again to Will Howard, Kenny Logan, and all of our other guests today, Toby Rowland, Zach Stevens, and of course, Matt Derrick for joining us. And our thanks to you for tuning in on 580 Sports Talk. All right, final word today, quick predictions for the weekend. I think Kansas State handles their business against Houston and wins that game handily, easing to victory against a Cougar team that I don't think can slow down K-State's offense, no matter who they put a quarterback. KU's going to cover that 9.5-point spread against Oklahoma. It will be tight, but I think Oklahoma in the end has too much. I think KU stays in it with a bunch of big chunk run plays. Chiefs are going to hammer the Broncos. I love the Chiefs minus 7.5. I think the Broncos are just not very good. Don't let the win last week fool you. I think the Chiefs handle their business. And finally, most importantly, my DePaul Fighting Tigers are going to remain unbeaten and just wallop the Kenyan Owls. They used to be the Lords. They're not anymore. It's a bummer. They're the Owls now. By any other name, they get worked, and DePaul's going to stay unbeaten with 2 weeks until the big Monon Bell Classic. That's it for 580 Sports Talk. We got some overtime coming up before high school football. Stay with us here on 580 WIBW.